Beautiful. We're live. And I have.
I've already been live.
And I know.
You're behind. You're
Hey,
behind.
hey. Be nice. I don't know what I'm doing.
No.
I just don't know what I'm doing.
You should, like, get with it.
Hey, it's still working for me, Masters, and I'm not at 1,000 yet, so everyone is stuck with it. There we go. It makes my life a little bit simpler.
I went on my BRB screen. I really need you know, fix my buttons. And I also need to fix the bird.
I should make.
Kind of freaking out.
I should make buttons at some point, but I'm not gonna do it.
Oh, I just realized why you were so quiet.
Why?
Your volume was at 22.
Oh well, that seems like generally a very good idea. And hey there, Terp, how you doing? Nice seeing you. And you got notified today about what in particular?
Right, there we go.
Your stream. Oh, well, there we go. Now you've joined the co-stream. Beautiful.
Hello.
Well, I'm glad you were notified so that you weren't just sitting out there in the dark. Beautiful. So, Oswin and everybody else who's going to be tuning in.
Gabby.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, I need it. I need to get the thing.
Oh.
The thingy thing.
The thingy thing?
Yeah, that thing.
The thingy thing. All right.
Okay.
By the way, I had a very busy day, so I really didn't have time to finish my dinner. So, I have my dessert here with me. This could be.
What is your dessert?
Grilled pineapple with a la mode. So it's grilled pineapple with vanilla ice cream, and I heard it's good. I'll let you know because I have not tasted it yet. So here we go. That is that's like a solid 9 out of 10 right there. I would definitely have that again. I mean, there's nothing there to make it go wrong, but still, it's just like that's pretty solid. I'm a fan.
Hey there, Spyro.
Spyro, thank you for whoever you're hosting.
Thank you for those.
And Terp is passed out already. Woohoo! Alrighty. Well, Mr. Oswin.
It didn't last too long.
Not at all.
Peace.
Mr. Oswin.
Yes.
Should we get started here?
No.
No.
What's the point of that?
Well, at some point I do have to go back to work tomorrow.
I have to go to work tomorrow too. Hey.
It's a real tragedy, isn't it? They should just give us tomorrow off. And Monday.
They should.
And Tuesday.
But I'm subbing for someone, so... Are you giving someone else off of work?
It is 1 a.m. I know it's 1 a.m. Well, I didn't know. Actually, also, what are you doing, Oswin? Oh, I can see your cursor on the. Apparently, you're the anonymous iguana. Okay. I should revoke your editing privileges. We have an outline for tonight, so this is just a thing. This is gonna be bad.
Hey,
all right,
Swig. How's it going? All right, continue.
swag. All right,
Sir Gabby.
then without further ado, let us actually get into the meat of this podcast, or whatever it is going to be, and do this thing properly. Agreed?
Nah, I mean, yes. Of
Good,
course.
good. All right,
We're
then.
productive.
Then welcome everybody to the solo talk. Lots and lots and lots of Star Wars. Everyone loves Star Wars, right, Oswin?
Yes, ironically, you asked me to talk with you on a podcast about Solo, when you should be doing it solo. Just realized that.
This is a
I'm
thing.
horrible with puns. I'm sorry.
Okay. It happens. You know, it's okay. So,
I don't know, it just came to me. I had to say it. Sad.
before we get like into the deep, very deep, like, you know, 9 books deep. Wait, which side? There we go. There we go.
Oh,
nine
gosh.
books deep. I did my research.
What have I gotten myself into?
The 9 books deep, history of Han Solo, that has been completely thrown out the window at this point.
Oh, it's all non-canon? It's all legends now?
It's all now legends, and like hardly any of it at all made it into the movie. But we'll talk about that.
Oh, that's sad.
That's okay, Spiral. It's partially for information. It's mostly for fun. So with that in mind, let's do the short, quickie, non-spoiler review about like what we thought of the movie, whether it was good, whether it was bad, if we recommend people see it, and then we'll move on into the deeper stuff. Sound good?
Indeed.
All right. Would you like me to go first? Would you like to go first?
You go first, sir.
All right.
You invited me.
All right.
You're the host.
So, Solo is a very, very, very good movie, and I will say that without reservation, and I will say that without any hesitation. On the whole, it is a very good film. It also works as a good Star Wars film, which I could not say about Episode 8 of The Last Jedi. I thought Episode 8 was a good movie. I did not think Episode 8 was a good Star Wars movie. Solo, a Star Wars story, actually does feel like a Star Wars story. It actually feels like it has weight, it has merit. It's not necessarily important to know, but it's at least it holds together well enough that it coheses with the now understood Star Wars proper canon universe. If you are a Star Wars fan, you should see this movie. If you are not a Star Wars fan, I still recommend it. It's good, but the impetus to go and see it is much less. You don't have to do that. It's not really important. It's not going to alter your viewing experience for any other movie. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give this one, as a movie, I'd give it like a 7.5. As a Star Wars movie, I'd probably actually give it a higher rating because it does open up a lot of very cool stuff. So I'd probably get like an 8, 8.5, maybe even a 9. Because there's a lot of really cool stuff that happens in here, which, if they do with it what I kind of hope they will, could turn into good things. But that's a little bit up in the air at the moment, which we will also get delve into a little bit later on. So that's my quick review. It's good. It's worth watching, whether you're a fan or you're not. But people who are fans are going to get a lot more out of it, and they're going to also get a much more cohesive picture. It's not perfect. There's some stuff that's a little off. That doesn't quite work out. That doesn't work out as well as I'm sure people were hoping. But on the whole, very good movie. I highly recommend to watch. Osmond?
Thanks, Gabby. I'm just kidding. No, I liked it. It was kind of weird when I went because I need to find new people to watch Star Wars movies with, because generally it's with my family and they are not particularly Star Wars fans. So it's an interesting thing nonetheless. Be quiet. We're so loud. Can you hear the bird, by the way?
I can. But that's okay.
Oh, okay.
It adds ambiance. I don't have saxophone playing right now, so, you know.
It's a happy little bird. It's flying around.
Happy little
bird. I thought if I let it out, it would be
song.
quieter, but nope. Nopey dope.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, if you watch, like, all the Star Wars movies, you can tell, like, the different traits that they have with how they were made in, like, the times. Now we're getting into, like, movies, the 8th movie and stuff, and it's kind of more like realistic, war gritty type things. I felt like this was kind of like a Western type, like that's what I would classify it as.
Yeah.
And I really like that style because it's kind of like that's who Han Solo is, because he's kind of like that.
He's a cowboy.
He's a cowboy in space basically, and I love that to death. Han Solo will die later, though. He loved it too much.
We do know the end now, yeah.
Well, that's not even that movie. That's a different movie. We have free reign to spoil other movies,
Yes,
Gabby.
we do. But, I mean, hey, that movie is, like, now 3 years old, so if you haven't seen that movie at this point, you're beyond hope. We can't help you.
Well, or they just don't care, so any spoils that we do give to them won't matter whatsoever.
Right. And yes, Masters, it is probably going to be very hard to play Fortnite while watching this, so I apologize for messing up your evening and for not being there. But that's...
Hey, Masters, look around. I would love to hear back that Masters like, yeah, I just got shotgunned in the back right now. Thanks a lot, guys.
that would make my day right there.
I guess I'll rate it. I would say as a Star Wars movie, I would rate it 8, and then as a normal movie, I'd rate I'm not sure, probably another 8.
Okay.
I liked it. I enjoyed myself.
Very good. Very good. That's a fair thing. It's a fair Masters is
I
number
just
3.
give it all around 8.
9.5 out of 10. What are your first 2 favorite Star Wars movies, Masters? Because that might help us get some clarification on that rating. And Barty, welcome to the stream.
Go to bed.
Go to bed, yes.
Go to bed, Barty. It's probably like midnight for you.
Very likely.
Oh, thank you.
Reach the rank of commoner. Did you demote him again?
Don't tell Swag, I don't know that. Okay, now I believe him. I finally believe him that his points are being, like, what the heck?
So
I didn't touch your points, man.
I
didn't think you were crazy.
There's some strong evidence to the contrary at the moment. Anyway. Can't stop. Alright, those would be the ones that I would consider to be like probably the 2 best. The 2 best made. So that it helps me a lot to figure out like what your take is on in terms of Star Wars movies and things like that. So very good, very good. I should have my chat actually farther over here.
Squirtbot is weird. Like there's just a lot of random people that have 0 points for no reason whatsoever.
I think those are people who just like stop in, like open up your stream and then like immediately disappear. I could be wrong on that, but that seems
Swag. Hey.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Let's see.
Do you have a DX Racer? Oh, you do. How about that?
What?
He's asking about your chair.
No, I don't. I have a GT Racer. Get it right.
It's
trademark.
It's the off-brand. Hey, I support the off-brand. Good stuff. All right. So, with the quickie non-spoiler review out of the way, this is your spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
I should have like gotten a sound effect or something I could play here. Be like, get out! It's the spoiler time. And
why would we need a sound effect? We have you.
Well, no. I mean, like a sound effect to announce that, not necessarily me say that, but like have a sound effect be like, and like R2 like shrieking and wailing and stuff like that. But I'm not that prepared. So here we are. All right.
Here we are once again.
Yes.
And I've had it for quite a while now, Barty. I don't know how long.
Long enough that he's forgotten.
Yeah. More than at least 3 months. Let me look. Last year. Actually.
Wow. Christmas
beginning.
Beginning of last year. So no.
No. The end of the beginning of. Okay, I'm just making this so complicated.
You're making it a lot worse.
12/12/17. There we go. Exact date. Exact. Boom. Is that helpful?
Grilled pineapple. All right. Anyway, so let's talk about the plot of this movie. And you kind of talked about it a little bit, which is okay because it really didn't give it that much away. You said it's kind of like a Western. In terms of how this thing plays out, it's kind of a heist movie. Like the whole point is that they're stealing something, and there's some great goal of just not necessarily personal gain, but like avoiding death by stealing something.
They got in the stealing game and they can't leave because they need to keep stealing to not be in debt.
Yeah, because it starts out by them trying to steal something and then like it just falls apart. Well, that's not quite how it starts, but that's where it gets. It starts with Han on Corellia with his significant other Kira, which ends up getting a lot more complicated as the movie goes on, but we'll get to that shortly, I'm sure. And they are trying to break out of Corellia. Apparently there's like this Imperial blockade, which is apparently a new thing with the present canon. I was not prepared for that. don't. There's nothing really like that in any of my 9 books. I mean, there's clearly an underclass there on Corellia, but it's nothing quite like it was shown there, where it was like, hey, you're
The scums.
not even so much that, but just like you're forced to stay here and do this. Oh my lord, it's 800 degrees into this thing. And I have my
I have an easy fix. Just take it out.
I have my air conditioning on full blast, but it's like, I am plastic on your face.
Now you know what it feels like to be Darth Vader. A small taste.
Yeah, that's bad. Now we know why he was so angry all the time.
But he probably had air conditioning. Let's be real.
Yeah, he did. There's
air conditioning from the hate of the dark side.
No, the suit was actually like climate controlled. He could actually survive in space just in the suit without like using the force at all for like up to a half an hour, just in the suit.
Dang. It's nice. It's always helpful.
Cool stuff. Yeah. All right. Anyway, we're not there yet. You're getting too fast.
I forgot you can see.
Yeah, I can see everything. Can you see when I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You are not quite the anonymous iguana you thought you were. All right.
I forgot about all that. Yeah, I was just thinking about things. Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so it's a heist movie, but I mean, it starts out with him breaking off Corellia and getting his name, which was like the first major departure, because in which one is it? That one? Is it this one? Yeah, this one. Is it the Assault at Salonia? Yeah. So in the Legends book, Assault at Salonia, which is one of the 5 planets in the Corellian system. Corellian system is really reared up. Is the only reason you deducted a half a point. In this book, in this series, which is the Corellian, what is the, I forget what the Corellian, just the Corellian trilogy from the Legends from the Legends books now. It turns out that Han Solo was actually a name on Corellia. It was like a house of people, and the house of people that it was attached to were actually like the kings of the planets. Or at least of the main planet there in the Corellian system, Corellia. And Han Solo was the heir apparent to that throne. But he decided he didn't really want to do that, and so he like ran away when he was very, very young. And he got picked up by a bunch of smugglers and pirates and traders and stuff like that, and he got raised by them in that trade. And that kind of went on into a later time where the monarch of Corellia died, and the throne was supposed to pass to the next person, which should have been him, but he didn't want it, but he still had to go back to Corellia to like turn down the throne, and his cousin, who looked exactly like him, tried to kill him to try and succeed him instead, and it was a long, complicated thing. Really good series of books. I highly recommend those too. The Corellian trilogy, which is the Assault at Salonia, Ambush at Corellia, and Showdown at Centerpoint. Very good.
Now I'm disappointed. I wish it was like that now.
Yeah, it's really.
It sounds a lot cooler.
But that's like past Return of the Jedi. Yeah, that was like 15 years past the Return of the Jedi. No, okay. maybe not quite that far, but it was significantly past that point. And so Han and Leia had gotten married at that point, and they had, I think, 2 of their 3 kids at that. Yeah, things changed a lot when they got rid of Legends. A lot, but it's good, still good. Or wait, no, they did have all 3, because Anakin, their youngest son, ended up firing the planetary repulsor all on his own because he was just like a genius in the Force and all that kind of stuff. And he was just like, "Hey, let's shoot this gigantic like doomsday weapon into space randomly." And I'm like, "Oh, I can't believe that happened." Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, talking of Legends, I was actually listening to an audiobook, and they had it where Ben was Luke's kid. I was so confused listening to that like the whole time. I didn't understand it all. And then Leia and Han had this little girl that was their kid. I was like, what the heck?
What series were you listening to?
I don't know, actually. It was kind of weird. My mom picked it up at the library, and when we were on vacation, we listened to it in the car for some of it, but no one else enjoyed it.
It has to be fairly far past like this point, because Ben was like 10 years younger than Han and Leia's youngest son. And
yeah, it sounded, from the looks of it and sound, or not looks, I obviously couldn't look at an audiobook, but it sounded like he was 16, the Ben was, and then based obviously everything off of that.
Okay.
Yeah, they were looking for some Sith. I never really got that far into it.
That's probably the fate of the Jedi series, where Han and Leia's oldest son turns to the dark side. Some things are the same, but some things are also not the same.
But Ben wasn't Han and Leia's kid, though.
No, but
No.
Han and Leia's kid or oldest son did turn to the dark side.
Oh.
In both iterations.
It confuses me too much.
It's okay.
Let's just be honest.
But like generally as a whole, the plot worked out pretty well. It made sense, kind of all the way through there. It's just like Master said. That's why he deducted a half a point. The presentation of Han just kind of like receiving his name by happenstance. I'm by myself, and he goes, Han Solo, da da da, like a fun little wink and nod to the audience. It's like, that's actually a whole lot less cool than what it was before.
Yeah,
like,
honestly, I enjoyed it, but now that I know the other backstory, I kind of wish it was the other way around.
Unfortunately, that would have probably taken about 5 movies to tell just on its own before we even get to A New Hope.
They didn't do it.
I know, but still, it's like, come on, you could have done something to get a little bit more, a little bit more in depth on there.
Yeah.
And by the way, just for clarification, this is butterscotch root beer. It is not an alcoholic beverage, although it may look like it.
I totally was actually looking at it. I was like, wait a second. Is this going to be one of those types of things?
No. Here we go. Let's see.
Gabby.
It's called Dang Butterscotch Root Beer. Right? See?
Okay.
Butterscotch Root Beer. There we go. Confirmation. I am not inebriating myself. I'm already crazy enough as it is.
I was like, oh crap, I don't know what I've gotten myself into.
You should know me better than that, Oswin. We've done these before. And if I got through The Last Jedi without drinking, I can get through this one.
Oh gosh.
All right. So, do you feel we're pretty good on the plot here? Like, it was just it's kind of not generic, but it was a well done heist movie with a kind of like a westernist feel to it. I mean, like, especially like the campfire scene where they're all just kind of like talking about how they're going to rob the train and make everything work together. Yeah, it just kind of felt like a western, and then it kind of took a little bit more of a dog leg left after that. But
where
after the train,
I kind of felt like it was a western type style movie throughout. They took the western style, in my opinion, and served it well within the movie. They did a good job with kind of just taking the formula and putting it in space, I guess you could say.
Speaking of formulaic movies, I just watched Incredibles 2 last night. That's also a good movie.
Actually, before this, I went out and watched Jurassic World 2.
That was the one we were going to watch, and then we're like, well, Incredibles 2 has been in the theaters longer, so we should probably get that one in before they take it out. So,
yeah, true. I was going to watch it at some point, but probably wait until it's out of theaters. Who knows?
There are some movies that are like theater movies, and there are other movies that are like less theater movies.
Yeah.
Incredibles 2, there is like one scene which I would really recommend seeing in theaters, and I'm not going to spoil that too, but I mean, it's not even like an action scene. It's just a scene where two people are talking, but it is just beautifully shot. Not the point. It's clearly not the point. We're on like two different movies at this point, but we're gonna get back to Star Wars. Trust me.
Someday, somehow.
Star Wars is just a sip away. All right, now, can we wrap it up on the plot?
Yeah.
All right. Let's move into the characters, and not just the characters, but like the character performances by the separate actors. So obviously, the center point of the whole movie is Han Solo, and the actor Alden Ehrenreich had to nail it, and for the most part, he did. There was a couple points where he actually kind of did a Han Solo or Harrison Ford impression, and you could hear that, and it was almost a little bit jarring because you're like, wow, that actually sounds just like Han Solo. And then he would drop it and he'd go back into just kind of like being himself, being his take on the character again. Which is kind of cool for those moments, but it was also like, it's a little bit jarring. It's not quite, may or may not have been the best acting decision, but on the whole, he turned in a very solid performance. I believed him, and I believed him making the decisions that he did at every point, because this is a very decision-heavy movie. You have every single character presented with multiple options at multiple different points of the movie, and it makes sense with what you learn about the characters up to that point, why they do what they did. And I think that is probably one of the best things that can happen in a movie, where it's like you're not wondering, you're not like going, oh, well, they just did that because the screenwriter told them that they had to do that, not because like this was actually something that was earned through the character. It felt like all of the decisions that these characters made was cohesive and it made sense, as opposed to just, hey, why shouldn't we just expect Beckett to be, backstabbing us right off the back? We did give you the spoiler warning. We're in spoiler territory, so Beckett backstabs everybody again and again and again.
Spoiler, everybody backstabs basically everybody.
These are not nice people. In case that wasn't immediately clear. But yeah, I was really appreciative of that take on it, where there was no point where it was just like, did they really have to do that, or why would they do that? It just made sense that they made those decisions. Your thoughts on Han Solo?
I thought it was kind of, I liked it because it was really showing how with the way that he is in like the prequels and is it prequels? The ones that he's in, right? I don't even know.
No, he's not in the prequels. He's in
the
original trilogy.
What is it? Just called the original trilogy then?
It is now.
It is now.
Yeah.
Didn't it have a different name though?
Originally, it was called the Star Wars trilogy, and then they made another trilogy, and so we had to find a way to differentiate those.
I'm confused. Anyhow, it kind of like, I felt like it kind of set up for his mistrusting ways, and like, I just need myself and my one Wookiee, and the rest of you, I don't care unless you have money for me. Mm-hmm. Really just fend for yourself type dealio. But I felt it was also, yeah, as you said before, like how he seemed like Harrison Ford. Mm-hmm. He really made it seem with the way that he had his humor, because it was basically the same person, like, hey, this is kind of a hard situation, but I'm still gonna make jokes and crack around with it.
Well, see, that's something that I actually just rewatched the original trilogy in the last like 2-3 weeks, just maybe one a week, just rewatching them, reacquainting myself.
To do that.
Highly recommend it. And I noticed something, that there's like this very strong disconnect with Han Solo specifically between episode 5 and episode 6. Like episode 4, episode 5, he's this like battle weary. He's not really like battle weary, but he's like world weary. He's seen it all. He's done it all. Nothing impresses him anymore. He's sarcastic. He's mean sometimes just because he can be. Like when he's
snarky jock,
scruffy looking nerf herder. I mean, it's what he is. Also, hi there, One Iron. And we're not talking about Han Solo being killed. This is like the complete opposite end of that spectrum at the moment. But I mean, and he has this like, he's funny, but he's funny because you realize just like how done he is with everything, and you can just kind of relate to that. in episode 6, he becomes like this optimistic, plucky hero, and you're like, oh, well, I mean, you really have to rewatch it to really catch on to, I mean, like, watch it with, like, fresh eyes. It was the first time I'd rewatched a Star Wars movie in, like, several years that I actually pulled something different out of it, that I hadn't before. And I was like, wow, I never really saw that disconnect between episode 5 and episode 6, where in episode 5 he goes into the carbonite, like, resigned to it, and then in episode 6 he pops out and he immediately starts, you know, cracking jokes about, you know, like they're going on the sand speeder to be dropped into the pit of Carcoon, and Luke says, "You're not missing much. I grew up here, you know." And he just kind of leans over, "You're gonna die here, you know." He's cracking wise, but I mean, it's not in the same vein as it was in episode 5, and it's really just the kind of the delivery that changed there. Maybe the writing didn't change that much, but the delivery of that writing was very, very, very different. And it's not like it was a bad thing. It was just different. It was enough that I noticed it this time. This last time that I watched it.
Yeah, while you're talking, I remembered something. He kind of has like a stigma about him where like he's very confident. Remember the one scene where he had the rock that he pretended it was a thermal detonator and that big like water creature?
Yes. And
like, even though they basically all knew it was a rock, they couldn't tell if it was actually a rock or not, and they were all frightened. It kind of reminds me of when he was in the Death Star chasing all those stormtroopers. Like, even though the odds are against him, never tell him the odds, but he takes it and he shows them that he's more confident even though he doesn't have the upper hand, and that creates it. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting.
Well, that's actually something that plays out a couple different times throughout this movie. Like, it happens there where he's trying to fake them out. Hey, it's a thermal detonator, but no, it's actually a rock. And then, like, towards the end, when, like, Enfys Nest catches up with them and they're trying to, you know, take all the hyperfuel.
Oh yeah.
And they're standing around, and he's like, "Hey, I have 30 guys in that ship down there, and they're about to come up here and kill all you people." And then, like, Lando flies away. It was a great moment because we're all laughing. He just kind of like backs up, like, "Oh, okay, that wasn't such a great thing," which again kind of mirrors that scene in the episode 4 where he's chasing the stormtroopers. He comes around the corner, and there's like a stormtrooper convention being held right there, and he's like, "Ah!" Turns around and runs back the other way.
Crap! Bad decisions were made.
Mistakes were made. And so there is that kind of interplay there where he is overconfident to a fault, and then will kind of project that onto other people, like in episode 4 where Luke shoots on the TIE fighter and he says, I got one, and he leans back over his shoulder. Great, kid, don't get cocky. But, like, what do you think you were doing, chasing down a squad of stormtroopers by your lonesome? I mean, how did you think this was going to work out? This was clearly just a bad decision from the start. So there's kind of like that weird, like, not quite meshing together of like his intentions or his plans with what actually happens. Because he said, even in episode 4, he says, there's no mystical force that governs my future. All just a bunch of simple tricks and nonsense. And that kind of describes.
Is that actually the lines?
Pretty
the
close.
Simple tricks and nonsense.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
Huh. All right then.
Never question my memory of movies.
Oh, I just did, and I will.
I have a very strong memory for movies. I can not quote you half of it, but I can at least remember most of the lines, particularly that I want to get to here. I don't know if I want to talk about this with her or Han, because there's an interplay here with Han and Kira that I want to talk about. And I know that I don't have them next to each other on my little outline here, but I kind of wanted to pair them up with like who they actually ended up being like connected with overall.
You're talking about the end when Kira does?
Well, not so much even there, but a little bit before that, where they're on the Falcon and they're in the cloak room, or in the cape room, not the cloak room, the cape room. Let's get this. Let's get this straight.
Of capes.
Yeah, and so they're in there and they have all these capes around them, and she's trying them on, and he's trying to make moves on her, like very obviously, and she says like, "Well, what are you?" And he says, "I'm an outlaw," and she kind of giggles and she laughs and she goes, "You're not an outlaw. You're a good guy. This life doesn't suit you. It doesn't mesh with you. This is not who you are." And it's this really great moment where you kind of understand. It gives you this beautiful insight where Han thinks he's a whole lot more dangerous and a whole lot more on the edge than he actually is. He's probably like one of the most pure-hearted beings in the galaxy, but who thinks he's the most dastardly and, evil of them all. And it's I was kind of thinking about doing this, mentioning this when we were talking about Kira later on, because she has enough insight into his character. I mean, obviously she has the insight because the writers gave it to her, but like, again, none of the decisions or the things that people say sound like something that they would not say, which is a credit to the writing and a credit to the acting, that was able to be brought out. And particularly here, where she's making this observation on him, like, hey, you think you're this way, but really you're this way. It really gives her credibility as, like, knowing who he is, but it kind of also creates credibility for his choices later on in life that we're going to see when he comes back to save Luke, and time again, just kind of going along with it in the Carbon Freeze and becoming a general in the rebellion, and even to the point where, Kylo Ren ends up killing him. It all makes sense that he would be willing to do that, because he's not this, devil-may-care smuggler. He is actually a good man.
Under the facade.
Under the facade. Yeah, very good. Exactly. So, that's kind of my thoughts on Han and Alden Ehrenreich. Beckett. This is
Beckett. Okay,
go ahead. I
was just remembering who Beckett was.
Yeah, he's the like the mentor figure person thing about.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with Beckett, like not like a problem with Beckett, but one of the interesting things about Beckett, and not even so much the character or anything around that. Beckett was played by Woody Harrelson, and this was the first time I've seen Woody Harrelson play anything where, like, in several years, where I didn't feel like he was doing an impression of himself. Beckett felt like a totally different character than Woody Harrelson typically plays. Not like he was a different character, or that he was totally incongruous with like how Woody Harrelson plays his characters, but it actually felt like Woody Harrelson was the character rather than like, okay, well, I'm just going to be myself on screen.
So he was actually doing some good acting?
He was actually doing some really good acting. I mean, he was introspective. He was, which is a kind of a weird thing to say about a character, particularly in like a summer blockbuster. But I mean, like, there's points where you see him just kind of stop, evaluate the situation, and go, I caused this. How do I move on from here? Like at the train scene when Val, we only see Val for a couple minutes. She's on screen like less than 10 minutes, and she in those couple minutes we establish her as being not just his partner in crime, but also being physically involved and all kind, and like which led up to an interesting point later on, which led up to an interesting question I had later on, which I don't believe is actually the case. Okay, Enfys Nest is one of the weirdest names I've ever heard, and when I first heard all the way through the movie up until like the very end, I kept for whatever reason hearing infant's nest. And so I'm like, well, why would a pirate crew be calling themselves a bunch of infants? This doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And then like, actually the character Enfys Nest takes off her helmet and we see Aaron Kellyman under there, and I'm like, oh, like maybe like she is Beckett and Val's daughter, like come back to like, you know, stick it to her parents for raising her wrong or something like that. And I'm like, oh,
dang, I didn't even think of that.
And I'm like, whoa. That's not apparently what the case here. But I mean, like, I thought that for a second, like, when I was still misinterpreting, and then I heard it like one more time, end fist, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that's not actually what I thought it was.
That's the best thing ever, though.
I'm like, I'm your baby, and I'm come to wreak my revenge on ya. So,
that you would get laughed out of all the gangster clubs like in the galaxy.
I know, I'm like,
your gang's name is Infant Nest.
It gets kind of like, what's your name? Taserface. Really? Taserface? That's your name? Tell him the name of the man who betrayed him. Who? Taserface. It's like, it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, why would you name yourself that? And then like, okay, Enfys Nest, not infants. And okay, just... It may have been very late at night when I watched this movie, but that's a whole other story.
How late is late?
Past my bedtime. We got home like 1:30ish. So by the time I figured it out, it was probably about 10 minutes to 1. So yeah, it was late enough.
One of those moments.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, for the time they have on screen, Val and Beckett, like, you don't have enough time to really establish their relationship, but you get enough there that you realize that they are more to each other than just you know, pirates and thieves together. And that was something that I would actually take as a negative to this movie, because they were more, and then enough was shown on screen that there was an establishment of like greater trust, greater connection, physicality, all this kind of stuff. And then when she dies, he has this short moment of introspection, which may have just been part of the character, and like having already lost so many other people in his life, he just was kind of numb to it all.
Yeah.
But he didn't really mourn her. He just saw it, he evaluated it, and he's like, okay, how can I still get her job done without her here? And then he moved on. And it was just kind of like, I as an audience member, I wanted to see more of that, like, loss out of him, because she felt like an important character. She felt like someone who was more important and was deserving of at least slightly more send-off than she received. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I think it was appropriate, honestly, because, like, his whole character, he tells Han, I forget, when does he tell Han to trust no one? It's like with one of the first confrontations, right?
He says trust no one when they're sitting around the campfire planning the train heist. So while everyone is still alive, he says trust no one.
Yeah, like,
which
to me that says that he's been in a very, very dark place before and has already liked people like her before.
Mm-hmm.
And when she dies, he's just like, well, crap, it's happening again.
Yeah.
And it doesn't faze him because he's already experienced it all.
If nothing else, he just feels inconvenienced because the person who was supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z as part of his plan is now not there to fulfill that. Which, I understand. I get it. And it makes sense for his character. It's just that, like, as the audience member, I kind of wish we'd have gotten more out of her death than just that moment. And there is a moment of introspection. You see him consider it. It does, like, touch whatever hard little heart he has, but it doesn't change the man. It just hardens him again. And it's like, okay, well, I can see it. I understand it. It makes sense. As the audience member, I just kind of felt like she deserved a little bit more of a send-off than she got.
Yeah. Kind of just swept under the covers.
Yeah.
Or carpet.
Carpet.
The saying is.
Under the rug.
I don't know. Under the rug. There we go. Got it.
That's what I'm here for. Etymology. Anyway, so Kira, let's kind of do these in couplets, because Beckett and Val were really together. Kira and Dryden Voss.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have enough time to look this up earlier, but I believe it is. I'm just gonna look it up right now. No, that's... Is it Crimson Dawn? No. Star Wars. There we go. It is Red Dawn. All right. Because I think Red Dawn is actually something that existed in Legends as well. Where's Wikipedia? Come on.
Is that really what it's called?
Yes, there's a website called Wikipedia.
Oh, that is good.
And it has everything Star Wars on it. So, Red Dawn. All right. All right. Crimson Dawn. Yeah, Crimson Dawn. Oh. Okay. Yeah, it's Crimson Dawn, not Red Dawn. My mistake. Some interpretation of Ruthless. So. All right. This seems. Yeah. I didn't think this was actually in Legends. I thought it might have been because there was a couple different, like, gangster organizations in Legends that were kind of going back and forth against each other. The big one was one called Black Sun, which I would love to see.
That was Mandalorian, right?
No. Mandalorians were mercenaries. They were hired by a lot of these criminal organizations at different periods throughout Star Wars history. But Black Sun was a criminal organization run by the Hutts. So, like, when Beckett says when he's leaving that if, Han survives all this, he's going to go and he'd heard about this big deal being put together by the Hutts on Tatooine that, Han should come out and meet up with him in case he should survive. That is... I thought that was a reference specifically to... like Black Sun, and then there's going to be this competition between Crimson Dawn and Black Sun, and they're going to be butting heads in like a second movie, which we'll get to. We'll talk about second movies and sequels and stuff like that later on. But suffice it to say that since Crimson Dawn is specific to this universe, it might be like the replacement for Black Sun. So there's not going to be another one out there like that.
Quick question. In the Clone Wars,
yes.
There is the organization that's trying to overthrow whatever her name, the pacifist for the Mandalorians. What is that group called? I forget.
The what? Like the Separatists?
No. It was specifically in the Clone Wars. Star Wars The Clone Wars.
Okay. Oh.
TV show. The group that Darth Maul took over.
Right.
What is their name? What are they called? That's what I thought was Black Sun. I thought they were that.
I don't believe so. Give me just a second. I know what
you're supposed to have all the information.
This is a tough one. Because I haven't seen the Clone Wars in a couple of years.
Tisk.
I know.
Excuses.
Actually, the Black Sun is actually part of this. Not that I'm on Wikipedia again. And they are within current canon, they are a counter organization to Crimson Sun, as well as the Plague Syndicate and Hutt Clan. Death Watch.
Yes, there we go.
There we are. I knew it was something like something Watch or something like Dark. It wasn't Dark Watch. It wasn't so it was Death Watch.
Overwatch.
That's not Overwatch. Don't even go there.
Go where I want.
You will not. I forbid you.
Aww. I don't want to be on house arrest.
I didn't say you were on house arrest. I said I forbid you from going to Overwatch, which is totally different. Just trust me on that. Anyway.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Back on topic.
Yeah. Ish. So. Dryden Voss and Kira are part of Crimson Dawn, and apparently are fairly involved in it. We find out at the end of the movie that Kira is like more involved with it than anybody else is, except for another character who we'll get to a little bit later. Don't go there yet. We already went there, but we're not gonna go there yet. But yeah,
You have
so
no idea how I just wanted to say it. And
I
then
know.
you said, "Don't. We're not gonna go there yet."
I know. Which we can. It's Darth Maul, everybody. It's Darth Maul. He's the head of Crimson Dawn. Okay. Spoilers.
He's alive and well and busy.
He's kicking.
Well, we already knew that he was alive. But
He's
busy.
kicking with robot legs. Oh,
Oh my gosh.
I just made that up. How was it? that needs
It was
to be
interesting.
there needs to be a song somewhere. Actually, someone's talking about Darth Maul like coming back from the dead, and now he's kicking with robot legs. Just you can.
You wanna know what? Go find a music artist and you do the vocals for the song, and I will listen to that all the time.
I don't know if I believe you.
Okay, I will listen to it all the time. I'll at least put on repeat for like 2 times. Bare minimum. Alright. I have something I want to say about Kira.
Yes.
I was deeply disappointed, although I do understand the outcome, and I think it was like kind of set everything up like how everyone's gonna backstab you, don't trust anyone kid.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted her to escape with Han when they were leaving Corellia,
Mm-hmm.
because I it's just that moment when you're like, I just want them to finally make it and not have to deal with their crap, but then it happened. But when she became part of what's the syndicate called? Syndicate what?
Crimson Dawn.
Crimson Dawn. Wait, is there another thing called Syndicate?
Crimson Dawn is a syndicate. It's a crime
okay.
syndicate.
Oh yeah, that's the word. When she was like, "Hey, I'm part of this," I'm like, "Oh crap!"
Yeah.
Because I figured what I was in my mind, the story that I was formulating was that they would be together for a long time, and then after a while something later on would happen, because when you see like two people, they're there for each other as children the whole entire time, like that's the one person you can trust, and then at the end of the movie she's just like, "Nah son, I'm out of here."
Mm-hmm.
That kind of disappointed me. I wanted them to go further with it, but they didn't. But it is interesting that she is part of that, and he's gonna have to part of the stuff with whatever his name is, I'm blanking. Maul.
Oh,
So he's gonna have to deal with that. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I would have liked to see it otherwise, but
I get how she's kind of an interesting one to talk about, especially in like her motivations, because she got caught when they were trying to leave Corellia, and knowing the little
that's the part that made me mad.
I know. See, and knowing what we do about the little bit that we do about Corellia, we can say very definitively that is just not a good place to be. And so, right, at least within the Legends canon, or not the Legends canon, but with like the current canon of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so, like, probably all manner of just like terrible things happened to her after that point, where, like, because it's Disney, we're not ever gonna find out what actually happened to her. Just like that kind of bad stuff just happened. Well then, sorry, Masters. I didn't. Well,
I'm sorry.
we'll have a part 2. You can be part of the conversation. Darn your addiction to Fortnite. This has now become like less of a, "Oh, I'm sorry we didn't invite you," to, this is now a self-inflicted injury to yourself. So I have no more sympathy. So, yeah. So it's a problem.
Hey, jump in chat whenever you have something to say, and we'll.
No, because he's just gonna complain every time he dies at that point. So he's not gonna stop playing Fortnite to talk with us.
Masters, do your push-ups.
See, nope. Confirmation. He's not going to stop doing that. Just almost one. Yeah.
Just almost one. What? One push-up? That's all you can do? Dang. That's disappointing.
I rolled out of bed this morning and did 50 just to wake up, but that's a whole other story. Number 2. We don't care about your Fortnite position, Masters. We really don't care. Nice try though. Anyway, so it makes sense that she would have sought out some other source of really just protection from all the bad stuff that was going on around her and to her.
Yeah.
Which would explain why she turned to Crimson Sun, and then how she'd have kind of like worked her way up the ranks. Because in a criminal organization, if you're not ascending, you're being killed off, and just bad stuff is happening. And because because she's a woman, and slavery is a thing in Star Wars. It's like, she really probably had to kill a whole lot of people to get where she was. A whole lot of very nasty and just, underhanded and literally backstabby kind of ways. Think about that one. Literally backstabby to make it come together. But yeah, so she's like dealing with all this, and it's like, okay, I understand how she ended up where she was. But that being said, it's like you can't really just excuse things that she does later on in response to that.
Yeah.
But like she's a good character. She's a good character. And again, none of the decisions that she makes seem out of character for what she is. There are different decisions than maybe the audience would have liked, because of course we all wanted them to escape from Corellia together. But really, if they escape from Corellia together, there's no place left for that story to go. They've won. Now they can do whatever they want.
Go off into the stars and the movie's over.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, that was a great 20 minutes. I want my money back.
Welcome back, One Iron.
Welcome back. And so there had to be that source of conflict, and that was like the best place to find it in order to drive Han Solo, at least to some extent, to the place where we see him in I know I didn't send it an announcement to One Iron. I'm sorry. It's been a busy, long day. At least, but anyway, we see it helps us understand how Han Solo got to the point where he did, where he joined the Empire to come back. And there's a thing that all the Star Wars movies are doing, both the anthology films and the other, and like the main storylines. Everybody is against the Empire or the First Order or something like that. But that's not really how it would have played out. That's not really how it would play out. There would be, to some extent, some people who were on board with what they're doing. There's always somebody who's like, okay, just because they are the people in power, they must be right to some extent, and they would support them, and they'd be like, hey, this Han Solo guy, he just broke out of Corellia, we should stop him, blah blah blah. And so this constant thing of like everybody not just being like oppressed and downtrodden and everything else like that, because people obviously are always trying to improve and better situations, but like this like universal disdain for the Empire, it doesn't make sense, because there would be some interplay. There would be some people who are like, yes, I am an Imperial citizen, I'm proud, I wear the Imperial crest on my shoulder at all times to show how proud I am to be serving my Emperor every day, doing whatever it is that I'm doing, even if they're not part of the armed forces. So that's like a world building thing, not necessarily a knock against the movie or any of the characters. It's just like it gets a little bit weird when and even Enfys Nest, when they show up and they start explaining like what's going on there, like why they're fighting against Crimson Dawn, and like they're saying, well, the Crimson Dawn supports the Empire. Okay, but how is that really a particular thing to you folks, that you're going to say that because they support the Empire, we need to get against them? Well, I understand that they're trying to make Enfys Nest like sort of turn into a sort of pseudo rebellion, which I'll get into with what is it? These books a little bit later on.
Oh boy. How many books do you have, Gavi?
Star Wars books or otherwise?
Star Wars.
I have no idea. At least 3 full drawers full of them, so assuming each drawer can fit about 40 books, plus some of them are shorter. probably about
God.
150 Star Wars books.
Remember that one time that we were thinking of having what was it called? No, let me think. Comrade meetup that one time?
Yes. I do recall.
It never happened, by the way.
It never happened.
That was sad.
It was. I met up with Kuya, but that was about as close as I got.
If we ever do something like that with SGA or Mixer, and I'm there and you're there, you have to bring some of these books.
Okay.
Or give me a list. One of the two.
I can give you a list.
You probably just do that anyways.
Yeah. I mean, I try to own all the Star Wars books. I've actually fallen behind on that the last, like, 10 years, actually. I need to...
Try to own all the merch.
Not all the merch, but, like, all the storied Star Wars books. Because, I mean... And this was something I had to talk some people out of, because they said, oh, well, he collects Star Wars books, so let's, get him the complete pictorial guide to Star Wars Episode 2. Well, I don't really...
Whoa.
It's like, I don't really care about that. If I want to see Star Wars Episode 2, I'll watch Star Wars Episode 2.
Yeah.
And why would anyone do that in the first... No.
Hey, I honestly like that one.
Sand. It's rough and coarse. It gets everywhere. I'm sorry. It's such a bad line. Actually, that entire thing on Naboo is just like bad writing ad infinitum and bad acting to back up the bad writing. It's just this is not my Darth Vader. You're not my Darth. No, sorry. Sorry. I'll stop.
This is not the Darth Vader we are looking for.
No. Yeah. Go ahead. One Iron.
No, you're prohibited. Sorry.
You are.
What?
You're. But yeah, what was I saying?
I have no idea.
No, it was about. It's before that. Empress Nest. Oh yeah, no, because we're past that. It was about Kira and Dryden Voss. We got really off topic there. When I go back and rewatch the VOD, I'm gonna go, oh, that's what it was, and I'm gonna just, it's not gonna work out. It'll be too late at that point. But it happens. Anyway, let's get back to Kira and Dryden Voss. So, big spoilers already declared out of the way. Kira, in the end, turns like straight up punks Han.
Villain.
Just like straight up, like, hey, okay, you go get Beckett and save all the hyperfuel. I'm gonna stay here and collect some money so we can go buy ourselves a ship. Okay, great. And I mean, her at that point, that scene in the cape room came back to me so strongly, because she's like, you're just a good guy. You're always doing this. You always believe the best out of people, and blah 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 blah. And he catches you can see him. He's like, I'm not 100% sure I believe her, but I love her, so I believe her.
Yeah.
And so he walks out the door, and she walks right past all this stuff and just starts and just immediately contacts Darth Maul, like, hey, Dryden Voss is dead, blah 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 blah. She covers for Han because she still cares about him, but she doesn't. That's it. She doesn't do anything beyond that.
I think it's because she has fallen into the hole so deep that she kind of just accepts it, but she doesn't want others to follow her in. Like she accepts that she's like a crummy person, and she just lives with that with their life. But when she sees other people, like Han, she doesn't want him to fall into the same pit that she's in.
Right. I understand that. At the same time, I'm watching it, and I'm like, maybe she's very greedy, and she's like, maybe if Han was to come with her, she fears that he would be a competition to her. Like he would supersede her at some point in the future, and so she's trying to limit that competition right off the bat. Or maybe she sees a use for him, which is why she would cover for him. But I mean, I think it's best to say that she doesn't feel like she can run far enough.
Yeah.
And so rather than even bother with that, her best option, in her mind at least, is just keep playing the game. Double down on it. Say, I'm your new number one person. Don't worry about Dryden Voss. He's dead. I'm the one who's running the show anyway. Give me the reins to the kingdom. And so it really did leave it a very interesting point. And also interestingly, she did that. She took the reins. She took control, but she still let the hyperfuel go. She stole the yacht. She stole the money. She stole everything on there. But she still let the hyperfuel stay with Han and with Enfys Nest. Which,
well, what choice did she have? Let's be honest. She didn't have any men.
Well, since everybody else was just kind of on the ground and she was in a big spaceship, I'm pretty sure the big spaceship had some guns on it somewhere, and she probably could have just been like, you can either put it down and start walking away, or I can blow up everything within about a square mile of here, and we'll see if anyone survives that. And if they do, I'll come and I'll blow them up again.
That is a good point.
So it was clearly a willful decision on her part to leave it there, because she could have gotten it if she wanted to.
Yeah.
At least there's enough like tangential evidence in Star Wars itself to be able to say, like, there's probably a means by which she could have gained that through the powers of the ship that she was in control of. So not necessarily there's firm evidence like, yes, this is exactly what's happening, but like we've never seen a ship in Star Wars that didn't have at least something that could shoot back.
Escape pods.
That's not a ship. It's a pod.
Yes, it is.
It's not a ship.
Escape. It can fly.
It cannot fly. It can fall with style.
What the heck, bird?
Anyway, Dryden Voss. Kind of a wasted character. This is one of the things that kind of bothers me a little bit. He's cool. He's very cool. But he doesn't really... They got Paul Bettany to play Dryden Voss. And it's a really cool story as to how Paul Bettany got in there. One Iron, there is nobody in the... Well, okay, wait a second. Is Masters still here? Masters is still here. So, Masters has seen my real face. But aside from that, nobody else has. So, I'm not taking this mask off until I hit 1,000 followers. So, deal with it.
1,000 views?
1,000 followers. Let's not even play that game.
Oh, I'm playing that game. Yeah. You have 7,000, man. Come on, you're far behind.
Only that I'm not revealing my face until I get 1,000 followers. That's the only thing. In the meantime, though, this like really. Now do you see where I got my Minecraft skin from, though? Isn't that nice? It's just like that nice reflection off my glasses.
I thought your Minecraft skin glitched out and like you had this really weird just like. I don't know. I thought it was a glitch.
Nope. It was intentional.
For the longest time. I was like, why did you do that?
Because I thought it was cool. That's why.
Oh, man.
I'm so sorry.
What was that?
There's a tissue.
Oh, okay. It looks like a piece of pizza. I'm like, what the...
No, I'm using this occasionally to wipe the sweat off my chin as it drips. Girl TD MO8, welcome to the stream.
That should be fun, Jace.
Also, One Iron, I looked at the picture you sent. I do not have that book. Again, it's kind of like one of those, like, hey, look at this thing about Star Wars. But I'm like, I actually want to get into the world of Star Wars, where that's not really one that I would pick up for myself. Are you? Never mind. I'm not gonna ask.
The bird doesn't like me right now.
Why does the bird not like you right now, Oswin?
I don't know. It just really doesn't. Just doesn't like me.
Does it feel it can't trust you?
There has been a couple times where I've had to forcefully pick her up because I literally had to go in like 5 minutes and I couldn't deal with trying to get her back in her cage for half an hour. Because that's normally what happens.
Understandable. One Iron, this is actually a mask. It is a green mask, and I have OBS set up to chroma key it to show whatever I have displaying as my background. I know. Best.
I like to think that that's just actually Gavi's face. That's just what he looks like.
Totally see-through?
It's how he was born.
Mm-hmm. It's just for fun, you know. It's a good way to maintain anonymity and also just make people angry. I typically also have like a semi-green screen setup back here, but I was feeling lazy, and so I didn't do that. No, Osmond cannot. Osmond still sees just this. Yeah, you're just seeing my green, the invisible.
Yeah, I'm not cool enough for that.
Anyway, that's off topic. But Dryden Voss.
I could see it if the Discord would work. Just thought of that.
You want to try it again? I can see if I can turn my camera on. Actually, you know what? I know why this is probably not working.
Why?
Probably because OBS is using the cameras. It may not be able to.
I didn't think of that.
It probably can't.
No, though.
I don't know. I'm not a technical genius.
I don't know either. All I know is when I have both of my webcams plugged in at the same time and open up OBS, it crashes my whole entire computer.
That's sounds about right.
Every time, without fail.
OBS is
and then I feel stupid because I have everything open and it just all crashed.
Fun.
It's not a fun time.
Not at all. Not at all. Anyway, Paul Bettany, he when he found out that Ron Howard was taking over directing of this movie, he texted him like, "Hey, have you ever like stayed up all night long wondering why you weren't in the Star Wars franchise?" I read the story yesterday. I was like, "This is really cool. I have to mention this." He texted him and he's like, "Hey, can I be in Star Wars?" And Ron Howard texted back like, "Lol. I just took over. Give me a week to get there, and then I'll talk to you in 2 weeks." And like 2 weeks later, he's like, "Yeah, why don't you come be in Star Wars?" He's like, "Great, I'd love to be." It's like,
oh my gosh,
why can't I do that? Come on, I'd love to be in Star Wars.
It's not what you know; it's who you know.
Exactly. And see, this is one of the things where I think it was a little bit where we missed an opportunity, because the species that Dryden Voss is what's called referred to as near human. So he has like the lines on his face, and they kind of open up and close down depending on like what sort of emotions he's feeling.
I thought those were scars.
No, those are actually like facial features. He's a mixed species.
Huh.
And so he's human and something else. And then
I don't want to know how that happened.
Well, when a man loves a Wookiee.
Okay, Gabby. Okay.
They get a spaceship together.
One too many steps. That's one too many steps.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
I have fun. I don't know if he does, but I have a lot of fun. Anyway, so he's a near human. I'm not going to speculate as to what kind of species he is mixed with, but he is and the thing is, because he's a near human and not like they classify him as a near human, not a crossbreed. That probably means that he was a human and another species. They breed, their child breeds with another human, and then like however far down that is. So it's like it's like more than 3/4 human, but like there's a little bit of extra flavor in there somewhere.
All right. Let's move on.
Too much? Okay. Anyway, so he's a whatever works, right, bearded villain? Hey, I'm here for factual evidence, or for factual discussion. I am not here for candy coating and stuff. Anyways, which would also be extra flavor. But anyway, having fun, Oswin?
Okay.
All right. Good.
Oh, I'm good.
Good.
Oh.
Anyway, so Dryden Voss, we know he's temperamental. We find that out like right as soon as we meet him, because he's like impaling a guy with his fancy knives. And it's like, oh, okay. He's
it's just a pastime.
Just what he does for fun, right?
Yeah.
We find he's very temperamental, that he's very high up in this Crimson Dawn organization, that he does a lot of very bad things to anybody he feels like. There's not really a lot of people who are giving him orders, but apparently there's a couple. We find out who they are later on. And then Kira mentions something when they're on Kessel, which and she doesn't really mention it so much as she does demonstrate it behind a closed door, and all we see is this little window thing. She's like, takes out a guard, and we go, what happened? And even L337's like, whoa! And she's like, what was that? And she goes, well, that was Terras Kasi. The real in-depth Star Wars fans know what Terras Kasi is. Terras Kasi is the...
I'm lost as to what scene this is.
Okay, so they're on Kessel. They've broken in. Han and Chewie are, locked up in chains.
Yep.
She walks down there with L337 and Lando.
Oh, was that the main caretaker type person, like the head boss of the mining facility?
Yeah, the guy who was dripping all over the place. And so she does something to him, and we don't see it because the door's closed. But she apparently just wrecks his face beyond all measure. And L337's like, whoa! I've never seen anything like that before. And she says, what was that? She goes, it's Terras Kasi. Well, Terras Kasi is the preeminent martial art of the Star Wars universe. I mean, there are, in Legends, there are stories of regular people beating Jedi Masters just by using Terras Kasi, because the Jedi Masters were only trained in lightsaber combat, and they weren't really aware of how that hand-to-hand sort of thing was really effective. There's also some other weirder stories about Jedi Masters being able to cut themselves off from the Force and learn Terras Kasi and do all kinds of stuff. So, but it was a very fan moment, but it was a fan moment that really didn't have any payoff because, number one, they didn't show us what happened. It all happened behind a door, and we only saw this little the cape flip around a little bit through the window, and we assumed something happened, but we didn't really see it. And then she says she learned it from Dryden Voss. And so when it comes time for them to have their big confrontation and showdown, you're like, oh crap, they're about to throw down with the greatest martial art of all time in the Star Wars universe, and then they don't.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, okay, I guess that's the end of it. Well, he taught her, and she pulled kind of a funny little trick with her sword, but that was really kind of the end of it. They just mentioned it there to get a fan reaction, and it didn't really pay off for anything. It was to me, that was one of the most disappointing parts of the film, where it's like, Terras Kasi, okay, great, they're gonna show whatever this is, and then they're just like, oh no, it's here.
I honestly kind of just forgot about it.
I know, but that's because you're not into the books. You're not into the books. Where did that book come from?
If you can find audio versions, send them to me, and I will listen to them all.
I'm pretty sure they're all on Audible, but I'm not sure how. I'm not sure if you want to have the monetary outlay that I've had. I've been collecting Star Wars books since I was 6. And
what we should do is get sponsored by Audible / Sir Gabby, and that'll be our sponsor link.
I have a better idea. I'll call Audible and be like, hey, can I read Star Wars books and be your Audible?
That would be a great idea.
Be your Audible reader. I would love to do that. Please, I'll do it for $100 a book. I don't care. I love Star Wars books that much. I will do it for $100 a book. It would be totally worth it. I would be way underpaid for that kind of work, but I would so do it.
Yeah, you would. Oh man. All right. Well, those two.
Yeah. Let's move on to Lando and L337. I'm gonna say this, but I did not spoil myself on this movie at all going in, except to know one thing: that there was a lot of controversy specifically around these two characters.
Oh, there was?
A huge amount of controversy of
I was under a rock then.
Political controversy. People were preparing to vote based on these two characters. Thanks for stopping in, Bearded Villain. Always good to see you.
Adios.
Those rare times I do. You're an awesome fella. I'm assuming. Anyway, so here's the thing, and the Pyretic, are you here? He is here. Crap.
Wait, what?
Pyretic is here.
Where did that
So,
come from?
well, part of the political controversy around these characters is their for lack of a better word, their professed sexuality.
Yes.
Remember there's the scene in the Millennium Falcon where they're flying to Kessel, and L337 and Kira are up in the bridge and they're having their like girl talk moment, and L337 is like, is like kind of lamenting not being able to be with the one she loves, and it's like, hey, it's Lando. Yep. And Kira goes like, well, how does that work? And L337 just kind of looks at him like, it works, trust me, it works. And it's like, what are you doing to Star Wars? Just straight up, what are you doing to Star Wars? I mean, that does not need to be in Star Wars, first of all. And the thing is, the way that the producer behind all this, and I'm going to, I'm not even going to bother. The way the producer behind this, a lady named Kathleen Kennedy, was trying to do that was that she was trying to make Lando Calrissian to be what is referred to as a pansexual. And which means that he finds love in everything. So it would have worked with a robot, or it would have worked with a Wookiee, or it would have worked with the navigator's chair on the bridge of the Falcon. I mean, it's like he's attracted to everybody and everything, and he doesn't judge about it. It's like, no. Lando Calrissian is a smooth talking ladies man, and this is the character that we've known for 30+ years. You can't just like throw in a new wrinkle because you think it's politically expedient. You just can't do that. And they tried to. And fortunately, Donald Glover was good enough at his role that he was able to read their lines in such a way that it didn't come across that way, where you did feel that distance. Although the robot was deluded enough to think, hey, it'll work. He was like still like, no, this is still technology. If he hadn't been, then number one, first of all, he would not have pulled her head off and plugged her into the hyperdrive. That would not have happened. It was just like that. That would not have been a thing that happened. And second of all, he would also not have ever bet that ship again, because his beloved was hooked into the hyperdrive, and how could he ever not just let that go? So
I have a bit of a problem with my bird wanting to eat my light bulb.
Is it a tasty light bulb?
I don't think so. So I don't think the bird should be eating it. Yeah, come on. Especially since... Hey. Okay. You continue talking, I'll take care of this bird.
Well, now I'm kind of interested. I want to see what's happening here.
Oh my gosh. You really want to?
Kinda. Not okay. Totally, but kinda. What's going on with the bird here? We can't see it from here. All we see is an empty room with a piano. By the way, I have a piano. I don't think you know that yet.
Oh, nice.
I don't know how to play it, but I have a piano.
That's a problem. I'll do things for doing things and stuffs.
What? Okay, it's a Dark Souls background.
What?
This is clearly Dark Souls.
It is?
Yeah.
I just thought it was cool.
No, this is clearly Dark Souls.
So, what's up with the core now?
Oh, this is. We're seeing part of Oswin's setup. This is kind of interesting. Oswin has a picture of his logo on the side there. It's also kind of interesting.
A picture of himself.
He's not entire. He is kind of totally, completely self-absorbed. We knew this, but.
But yeah, where is it there? This is my lamp.
And that's your bird.
And that's the bird.
I have a question.
Yes.
What happens if the bird poops on the lamp? Because birds do not have sphincter control.
Birds, what?
They have a cloaca, which does not provide them the ability to hold it.
Yeah, this bird poops everywhere.
That's
on my hand, poops on my windows.
All birds poop everywhere.
Yeah, well, this one especially because it hates my room.
Mm-hmm. So the bird has pooped on the lamp before.
No, it just started to want to go on it.
Oh,
today.
cool.
Or actually yesterday, or a couple days ago. But it hasn't done it so boldly. Come on.
I may have to. I may have to at some point. Did he just fly out the window? Because it just looked like he flew out the window.
I wish.
It was just like, I'm free!
I wish. There's a point at which I just don't like this bird at all.
Uh-huh.
And this is one of those moments.
Uh-huh. It's really just trolling you here, isn't it?
It likes to do this
Where?
a lot.
What are you trying to do exactly?
Get in its cage so it doesn't break my window.
Oh.
Pizza. Chicken bird.
It's like, no, I will escape. Oh.
Get your Christmas bell.
Does this usually work better than it is right now?
No. This is my only option.
Your only option. You've
Or
not.
grabbing it, but that ruins its trust that it has for me.
Oh.
The little I have.
It seems to be trusting you a whole lot right now.
Okay. Come here, Pepita. Pepita, come here.
It's now mocking you openly.
And there is a deer running through my yard. A little Bambi.
Can I come visit and bring my shotgun?
Oh, wait. I didn't even realize you were on
I'm just saying. You know, it's cold. It's probably cold out there. We should bring them up and warm them up on the grill, or in the oven, on the stove,
Oh my gosh, Daddy.
with some good garlic and spices. You know. I don't
I
particularly.
don't think she... Yeah?
I don't-
Continue?
This doesn't seem like it's working very well.
No, it doesn't work, Gabby. I'm telling you, this is what I have to go through every single day when I take this thing out of its cage.
There seems like a very simple solution to this problem.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Don't take it out of its cage.
Yeah, that's the problem because otherwise it gets kind of crazy.
Oh.
Because it likes to fly around and that's how it gets rid of its energy.
I couldn't tell. I really just couldn't tell. And now it's back on the light. Nope, now it's back on the window. Shh. Alright, it's back on. It knows what you're trying to do.
It does.
It's
It really does.
isn't it really
It openly mocks me.
to the rest of the audience, isn't it really funny when you see a bird that's smarter than the person? Oh. Well, now it wants to go in there. Now it's pissed off.
No, I trust you. It doesn't.
Alright.
Okay, Pepita. This is like...
There we go.
Nope, it's not over. It's gonna fly back.
This is gonna go on. We need that like little cut that like SpongeBob has. 20 minutes later.
Get off of my lamp.
4 hours later. Ah, no. Sweat.
There
Do
you
not
go.
go into
Pepita.
eye. You have your problems, I have mine.
What's your problem?
I was about to sweat in my eye.
There you go, Pepita. No.
Like, I will
Why do
escape.
you like the lamp? You're not a bug.
Prove it. Prove it. I'm bugging you, aren't I?
I can't even see her anymore.
The bird has just won. The bird has just won. Confirmation. What a lovely sound. Please tell me the bird is not in there.
I wish. Pepita, come here. Okay.
Giving up again?
No, my mom actually went to the bird store and got some random things.
Some random things, okay.
So, where are we on with the story? Because this is going to take me a long time.
Alright, so we were talking about, how there's a lot of political controversy about trying to turn Lando into some sort of really just weird person. And how Donald Glover did a fantastic job of avoiding that. And then how kind of L337 lived up a lot to the trepidation that a lot of the fans had, because there's no point for a droid to walk the way that she does, like, at all. There's like this huge, very exaggerated sway to her hips as she's walking along, and and some of the responses that she has, like they're flying away from wherever it was that they found him to win the Falcon, and then they fail, and then they're flying away, and they make the jump to hyperspace. He says, "Okay, I'm going to go get something." He turns to her and he says, "So, is there anything that you need, that you like, something to that effect?" And she goes, "Equal rights." And it's like, droid, are you the infant's nest? I mean, just because that's like one of the most childish things you could do. Is like, okay, I get it, you feel you're oppressed, blah, but I mean, there's no reason to have that sort of conversation with your supposed lover. It's like, it doesn't make. It was really stupid. It took me out of the movie. It was just, I did not care for her character. The one thing I did like was like how she died. Not necessarily like, okay, well, she got shot with a blaster and fell into pieces, and then he tried to like Lieutenant Dan her into the Falcon and left her legs behind, which was great. Anyone who's seen Forrest Gump knows what I'm saying. Lieutenant Dan, you ain't got any legs. Yeah,
I don't remember.
That was good. Anyway,
I don't think I've seen it.
probably that one. Probably don't. At least not for a couple more years. How old are you again? Don't say that. It's a picture. You're not allowed to say that. Anyway.
Not allowed, as long as you're over 13.
True. You're over 13. We're good. Anyway, so he like Lieutenant Dan's her into the Falcon.
I give up.
And she's just like, but she died standing in the middle of an open field with like this huge battle going on, just like pointing and leaving, shouting directions, and she's bright yellow, and like, nobody's gonna take a shot at me here, right? It's like the infantile nature of her possibly very legitimate claims is what killed her, and that to me kind of justified it. It made me feel a lot better about her existence in the movie at all. I did not think she added anything of great importance. In fact, even after she died and they plugged her into the fighter drive of the Falcon, it kind of neutered that story, because in this one,
Oh my gosh.
it's a thing. Well, in one of these three, there's actually 3 books in this one. Han Solo at Star's End, Han Solo's Revenge, and Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. Fantastic trilogy of books. But in this one, when Han Solo makes the Kessel Run, he does it not by superior navigation, but by superior piloting skills, which we'll talk a little bit about that more when we talk about like the set pieces. But the Maw was changed drastically from how it is in Star Wars Legends, like drastically, and it was cool to see like the big space beast. But I think the Maw itself is a lot cooler as it's described in Legends. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Yeah.
So, like I said, those are kind of cool characters. I mean, Lando, he's Lando, but L337 was kind of like the major detracting character to the story for me. It's just like she didn't really add anything, and what she did add, like, would have been better had it been played out in other manners, by my opinion.
Yeah, it was kind of like a plot device with the whole navigation thing. Like, where did she come up with one of the best navigation things? You know?
Yeah,
navigation memory banks.
They didn't really explain that. They're just like, okay, well, she has one. Well, how?
Why?
How? Why?
A character like her.
And the thing is, when you get into some of the source material on L337, the person who created her was like, oh, not only is she this super amazing navigational robot, but she built herself.
What?
Yeah, I'm not kidding. This is like from Kathleen Kennedy herself descending upon all mankind. It's like, no, a robot cannot build itself. A robot can build another robot, but a robot cannot build itself. So I don't understand how you're going to say that. It doesn't make any sense.
It can modify itself by adding other parts?
It can do that, yes, but it can't just like spontaneously bring itself into existence. That doesn't work.
Dude, that's, yeah.
Yeah, but Kathleen Kennedy thought it sounded cool, so here we go. Yeah.
Darn you, Kathleen.
Darn you! That's the big controversy. Well, that's the controversy we're facing right now. We'll get to that later. I want to touch on. I probably should. I just realized I didn't put Chewbacca on here.
You didn't.
I did not put
How
Chewbacca.
rude.
I was thinking, oh, you know, he didn't really have any dialogue. So I was kind of talking a little bit about the performance, about the actors, and I found out that they did just change over the actor inside the Chewbacca suit. It used to be Peter Mayhew, and he was Chewbacca from episode 4 on, and then he was a stunt double for Peter. There's a new guy, I forget what his name is, but he was a stunt double for Peter Mayhew in episode 7, and then from there on, he is now Chewbacca. He's this other like 7'4" gigantic human being sort of thing. So, I mean, it makes sense. Peter Mayhew is in his 70s now. He can't keep doing it forever.
Quick question.
Yes.
The other Wookiee that they saved, was that Chewbacca's wife?
I don't know. They did not disclose that at all.
Okay.
And the thing is, I don't know if Chewbacca's wife is going to end up being the same wife as it was in Legends.
Yeah.
Because in Legends, let's see. Okay. In Legends, Chewbacca's wife's name is Ralra. And that's the shortened version. And like, sorry. But yeah, it's that actually kind of works actually. So I'm just gonna run with it. No, but Ralra never left Kashyyyk in Legends. She was like put into like a sweatshop type of factory by the Empire after they came in and destroyed Kashyyyk. But I mean, she never left Kashyyyk, and they took Chewbacca off planet because he was a rabble rouser and like a leader of the Wookiee rebellion, and they put him to work. Actually, he was part of the ground force building some of the components for the first Death Star. And in Legends, Han Solo goes and saves him and brings him out of that, which was like, and that's how Han Solo and Chewbacca got connected up, because Han Solo was there as part of the Imperial Academy, and he saw one of the superior officers whipping this group of Wookiees, and Chewbacca was among them. And he's watching it, and he's like, this feels wrong to me, this shouldn't be happening. And he's like beating one of these Wookiees almost to death, which was Chewbacca. And he goes over and he takes the whip away from it, and he whips the Imperial officer in the face. And Imperial officer goes down, and Han Solo is immediately...
Sounds like another real life story to me.
It does, isn't it? Isn't that amazing? But the thing is, this brings in a very important part of the relationship dynamic between Han Solo and Chewbacca, which they didn't touch at all in this, and I think they really kind of cheapened it because Chewbacca's just kind of there in this movie, as opposed to being like firmly connected like he is in Legends, because Han Solo saved his life. Bad example, but it works. In Episode 1, Jar Jar is saved by Qui-Gon Jinn, and he owes him the life debt. And we're stuck with him for another 2 movies. But in Legends, Han Solo saves Chewbacca, and the Wookiees have a life debt as well. If you're saved by somebody, you must make sure that they and their family are never brought to harm. Like, even to the death of yourself. And if that happens, the debt doesn't end with you. It's passed on to your family until the person you owe it to has died, and prospectively, like, everyone else that you've protected up to that point.
Dang.
I mean, it's like super
That sounds
serious.
like the best way to go around the galaxy and get servants.
Like, just go saving people.
You don't belong to me.
Yeah, you know, but I mean, like, it's like a super serious thing to the Wookiees, which comes out like so poignantly in Legends, and this one just kind of like glossed over. It's like they turn it into a joke, really, because they throw Han down into the pit with the Beast, and it's Chewbacca, and he comes up and he's like feigning to speak, Wookiee, and it's like, Chewbacca understands English. Well, he understands Basic, which is English in Star Wars. And so it's like there's not really a reason for him to, going at Chewbacca in the pit. It doesn't make a lot. It's funny, and it's one of those things that was clearly put in there by the original directors, which we're also going to talk about that in a second. But it wasn't necessarily necessary. It was like it was kind of funny, but not that funny. It was actually a little bit off-putting. Like I said, it's not. It's one of those things you just kind of had to get through watching it. What'd you do now?
Nothing.
Good.
This bird is really getting on my nerves.
That sounds to me like a personal problem.
It is.
Good. Anyway.
I'm listening. Go on.
Good. So, yeah, it's just kind of how it goes. It's like, I think there would have been a lot better dynamic between Chewbacca and Han Solo had Han actually saved Chewie rather than almost practically been saved by Chewie. There's a extra layer of just camaraderie there that I think was missing, because they happened to be at the same place at the same time, as opposed to Chewbacca was like bound to do this, like honor bound. And he's like, I'm going to do this. Not that it's like he would want to do something else because Mama Wookiee raised him right, but I knew I'd get you. But not that he wanted to do anything else.
Budgie
but
was not raised right.
Huh?
I said this Budgie was not raised right.
That's a personal problem as well. And probably a lot of the fault lies with you.
Hey, I have it for the summer, okay? This isn't even mine.
All right. But yeah, I just feel like the relationship there, and it may be something that will come up should they continue this on, because it did end looking like it was going to head into like at least a duology, maybe another like anthology trilogy sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I was very kind of I was a little disappointed, because I thought when he goes down the pit, I'm like, okay, he's going to do something to get him out of there and save him and blah 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 blah. But that didn't happen, and instead
it was more he needed Chewbacca instead of Chewbacca needed him.
Yeah, and so they still have very separate goals, and there's no real connection to each other except for convenience. And so it's kind of like there's not that togetherness that should be there. Kind of moving on, we can get through the next ones pretty quickly. Rio, he wasn't in the movie for very long, just a little bit longer actually than...
Was Rio the pilot?
Yes.
Oh, I liked Rio. He was cool.
Rio was great. It took me a couple minutes to realize it was Jon Favreau voicing him, but as soon as I did, I was like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And he really, he brought a lot of life to the beginning of the movie, because you just felt like he was the most, despite being an alien, he felt like the most human part of that group. Just like having humanity and trying to just make it. Everyone else kind of like, we have our agenda, but he's just like, I'm just here to make it and have fun. And everyone else is like, no, I'm here to do this and that and the other. And he's just like, no. I'm just here to make it and have fun. It's like, it was such a great character. And I understand why they kind of had to kill him off earlier, because he didn't have a lot to do, because he didn't have any of those subplots or anything surrounding him.
Yeah.
But just a really cool character. I really enjoyed him. Properly pronounced, Enfys Nest, played by Aaron Kellyman. Very cool, like, side antagonist turned protagonist at the end. Really like the character design when they took the helmet off. Like I said, I thought she might have been Fallon Beckett's Spawn, but having gotten the correct pronunciation on that one, I rescinded that offer, or that thought, and yeah, let's just leave it there for her. At least for the let's just leave it there for her, and maybe I'll have a unsupervised cast someday where we talk about that. Very unsupervised cast, or just I'll not cast it. We'll just have a talk sometime with somebody other than Oswin, because I don't think he's old enough yet. Hey, I'm getting to be an old man. I'm a dirty one too. No, that was way too easy. I'm sorry. That was way too easy.
So, what was in that soda of yours?
Let's see. Is this wintergreen or is this a sassafras one? Does not say.
It's alright. Yeah, I'm on iron. It's probably for the best.
That's really good. That's good. Mm-hmm. It's like when Sasquatch and I talk about our family reunions. It's really good that only he and I know what's going on. Anyway, so
and Masters. Don't forget the Masters.
He's new. He bit me. We're not getting back into that.
Oh my gosh.
We're not getting back into that. Anyway, Darth Maul. Clearly the Star Wars Rebels version of Darth Maul. He had the robot legs. He is clearly, like, they're tying that together, the animated with the live action movies, which is cool. And it's cool that he's running Red Dawn. We didn't really see a lot of him, but it's just cool that he's there. I hope we get to see more of him. I hope they continue on and make a couple more anthology films in the vein of following Solo's storyline, because I think that'd be very, very cool. I think it would be beneficial to kind of expand the world. That's the thing. Anthology films are not necessary to the story. Like, this book, no matter how great it is not necessary to the story of Star Wars. All that's necessary to the story of Star Wars are really 4, 5, and 6. But because that was the story that was intended to be told. 1, 2, and 3 are expanding on it, and they give more depth on the characters and give you more understanding of, like, where they come from. 7, 8, respectively 9, show you, like, the next generation, which is like a totally different story than what we see in 4, 5, and 6. Everything that came out in Legends like this, and is coming out now in anthology works and in the animated TV shows and in the soon-to-be airing live TV shows, all that stuff.
Wait, what?
There's live TV shows of Star Wars coming. Did you not know this?
What?
This is a thing. Like, catch up with the rest of the world. Come on.
I didn't know that.
Well, now you do.
Now I know.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyway, with this being a thing, it's not going to add to the story. The story has been told. The story, 4, 5, and 6, that's the story. What this does is it builds the world. It tells you what was happening everywhere else while that was going on. And it tells you how that formulated, how that came to be, what came as a result of that. But the story has already been told. You have to use 4, 5, and 6 as like your as your decoder lens for everything else in the Star Wars universe, which is like my big problem with Episode 8, because Rian Johnson just didn't do that. He's like, throw it all out. Well, no, because the story is 4, 5, and 6. Everything else that comes before, after, during, around doesn't matter unless it is in some way connected to building up the story of 4, 5, and 6. And that's why I think Episode 8 was a good movie, but not a good Star Wars movie, because it did nothing to improve upon or add context to or in any way, shape, or form support 4, 5, and 6. In fact, all it did was like completely dump on it, but that's a whole other story. Good movie, not a good Star Wars movie. Getting off that topic. But with Maul being in here, it is building, it's closing that world in, and it's saying, hey, here are the boundaries of what we're going to do in terms of Star Wars anthology. In Star Wars beyond just the numbered sequels, it's like, hey, we're going to not just set up a set of rules for this world, but we're going to set up characters to operate in those rules, but not connected to each other. I can definitely see, should they continue on with continued specific, not just anthology films, but like solo anthology films following Han Solo as he goes on, I can definitely see it like turning out where he ends up killing Darth Maul at some point in the future. That right now is very much in question, whether or not they will do those.
He can't, because we all know his death is by Obi-Wan.
Solo, a Star Wars story, takes place about 20 plus years after he's cut in half by Obi-Wan Kenobi. After. So
yeah, but
I'm just throwing this out here.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't actually think of that. Can no one kill him?
Obi-Wan Kenobi cut him in half.
Twice.
Once.
No, wait. Once.
Cut him in half once. And he lost his legs. And he fell down to the bottom of that chute and survived. Legless. And so he like crawled into this junk pile and found like mechanical parts and put them together and like sutured themselves to himself with the Force to be able to move around. And he became like this junk god
yeah, I've seen the episodes with him in him.
Yeah.
That stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's where he came from there. Not Anakin, Darth Maul. And sorry, I'm trying not to snap. It's just like I'm in my vein. No, but so Darth Maul becomes like half machine, and then Savage Opress comes and he finds him. His mind is gone. Is all messed up. No. Please continue. I'm just spastic. And so Savage Opress, helps him. They like replace the big spider body that he had with just two heavily reinforced legs. Interestingly enough, the legs that Savage Opress put on him within canon now are actually made out of a substance called Phrek, Phrek, which is resistant to lightsabers. So you can't cut his legs off anymore with a lightsaber.
Well, just start cutting higher and higher.
Yeah. We're going to give you a haircut starting at the neck. And
oh, gosh.
I was about to start singing a Sweeney Todd song and remembered that there's children present. No.
Gabby.
Kids, don't watch Sweeney Todd until you're older. But lots of blood in that movie.
Yeah, but he gets killed twice.
No, he does not. Yeah. Well, he does not.
In Rebels, he gets killed.
He does not, because he comes back and is in
Solo.
Wait, no, you're.
I'm confused now.
Wait, okay, I am not current on Rebels.
You aren't?
I'm not.
Oh, I spoiled it then.
I'm about a season behind. You haven't really spoiled it because I figured at some point or another he had to die before episode 4. I mean, he just had to die before episode 4. It really is not that big of a spoiler. It's like watching Rogue One and going, I wonder how many of them I'll see again in episode 4. Well,
nope.
Not a lot of them. I'm just gonna break that one to you.
He finds Obi-Wan in the desert because of what's the main antagonist name? The kid in Rebels.
Protagonist.
Protagonist. Sorry.
Ezra.
Ezra. Ezra leads him there somehow. I haven't actually seen the full episode. I don't. Maybe I have. I forget. But basically, he confronts him. They have a standoff, and Obi-Wan gets him in a quick 1-2, and he's like, "So you're watching the Chosen one?" And he's like, "Yeah." They have a little dialogue, and then he dies.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Okay. I mean, I kind of wish they hadn't done that. I wish they'd have, because that would have been like a really cool way to do an Obi-Wan movie. If we're gonna keep doing anthology films, I heard that there was a big push for a Obi-Wan Kenobi anthology film because Ewan McGregor was the best part of the prequels, just straight up. And so there's a big push to have him come back and play Obi-Wan in a Obi-Wan Star Wars story film.
Yeah.
But the film treatment that I saw was that Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to go out and he was going to be on Tatooine the entire time, and he was going to fight against some Tusken Raiders who were oppressing this like small group of people. And like, I don't want. I want to see Obi-Wan Kenobi on screen, and I want to see Ewan McGregor play him, but I don't want to see that movie. I just don't want to see that movie. That doesn't sound interesting to me at all. Obi-Wan having a final showdown with Darth Maul, that is something I want to see. That sounds really cool. Clearly that's not happening. Clearly that's not where we're gonna get. But you know, it would have been cool. Maybe we'll see some. Maybe they'll change that film treatment and they'll make an Obi-Wan movie that people actually want to watch. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm somewhat a part of, I follow and watch some stuff, and that's basically what I see is we will only accept that movie if it's by or if it casts Ian McGregor, basically.
Yeah. It is.
People are really picky.
But we have a right to be. No. Really, we do. Because without our money, none of it works. If we don't show up to the theater and put down our $10, $12, $15, $20, whatever it is, depending on what format you see it in, none of it works. None of it happens. And that's the big problem. That's the big thing that's been striking everybody with Solo right now. Solo is the first Star Wars movie to not turn a profit at the theater. It is the first Star Wars box office flop. Disney has lost over $50 million on Solo.
Dang.
And the thing is, it's a good movie. It did not deserve to be a flop. It deserved to be profitable. It deserved to get sequels lined up already being like put in the works right now. Because it's a good movie. And it's a good Star Wars movie. It supports 4, 5, and 6. It supports the story. But because of the mishandling of Episode 8, there was a lot of backlash from the fans, us. Not necessarily me, but like the people who were like very deep into Star Wars, who own all the books, who were upset when Timothy Zahn's Thrawn trilogy didn't turn into 7, 8, and 9, which I'm still mad that the Thrawn trilogy is not 7, 8, and 9. I understand that Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford were all about 30 years too old to play those parts for the Thrawn trilogy, but I still want to see the Thrawn trilogy on screen. That would be the greatest Star Wars. It would be so. It had the potential to become the new story. It was that good.
Yeah, Thrawn was put into Rebels quite heavily, though.
I haven't seen any of his stuff, which I'm sad about because I am a huge Thrawn fan, particularly, mostly because of the Thrawn trilogy. Timothy Zahn, when he created at Grand Admiral Thrawn, he shook the Star Wars universe because nobody, as powerful as the Emperor was, as imposing and terrifying as Darth Vader was, there was no villain in the Star Wars universe which was so completely overwhelming and destructive to the forces that we had come to know and understand to be like the chosen ones of the galaxy as Grand Admiral Thrawn. Nobody could beat him because he was just who he was. and it was like,
if you do watch it, let me know. We should get a rabbit up because I need to watch it again.
I don't know where is there a place you can stream Rebels? I'll look it up after the stream.
I don't know.
I'll look it up because I actually don't think there will be until February next year. Because Disney has stopped putting all their stuff on Hulu and Netflix. There will be no new Disney movies hitting either Netflix or Hulu ever, probably, because in February next year, Disney is going to be launching their own independent streaming service, where they'll be putting up all their movies and all their properties. So that's where all the Marvel movies are going. That's where all the Star Wars movies are going. That's where all the Disney, Pixar, everything. That's where that's all going to go. And seeing as Disney owns the Infinity Gauntlet of like entertainment,
everything.
Yeah, they pretty much anything you're gonna watch is gonna be on the Disney streaming platform. So, yeah.
Well, that sucks for all those people.
And everybody else, but so much. So much for that. But yeah, pretty much. So, I forgot where we were. Set pieces. There we go. Thank you. You're keeping track of this so well, Oswin. I knew there was a reason I invited you to be here. And not just to laugh on cue. No. The train was cool. It could have probably been handled a little bit better because the whole like ship hanging over top of it was a little bit weird. I mean, the train is clearly moving really fast.
Yeah. And
the ship is having to move really fast to go with it. And people are just like on top of it. And it's like, oh, well, they don't need any special equipment for this. They don't need masks or helmets or anything. They're just kind of on top of it. So it was a little bit weird, but not overly so. I think there's probably, if anything, that I would have changed. How it played out was about right. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was all right. It got the point across. It got rid of the characters that they were finished with, and it introduced a couple more that were going to be meeting later on. It had that great explosion at the end when all the hyperfuel goes up, and just in general, it did the job that it was supposed to do.
One thing about that the explosion, they could have avoided that by they're both tugging in opposite directions, like 3, 4 little guys and then the big one.
Yeah.
They could have just flown over to the left.
Don't put logic in Star.
Well, like if he saw that he was gonna lose it, it would have been much better to throw them off guard by swerving, because that would be tugging. If it worked out the way I think, it would be tugging it towards them. They would be out of, they wouldn't have any control over their ships, and they would most likely crash or be in a very bad situation. I think it was a waste, and they should. I don't know.
I say they could have.
Like it.
They could have pulled the maneuver that they should have pulled in the Maw, or that Han Solo should have done. And actually, I'm gonna.
What's the Maw?
Do you remember the big black hole?
Oh, yeah, that's the Maw?
Yeah, that's the Maw. I'm actually going to swap these around because Kessel technically came first. So, yeah. Kessel...
I liked Kessel.
I liked Kessel. They didn't do Kessel according to legends, but I think they did Kessel right. Because...
You have a book do you have it all organized in like piles right next to you or something?
No, I just know what they are.
Oh, so you just have a big stack of them.
I have a pile of books over here, and it's just like all over the place. Oh, I want to go back for just a second. Let me see. Does this one have a tremendous person name? Because I've quite forgotten her name. Priest, yada yada. Exalted. Oh, this is gonna bug me because I know her name. Gah! It's Twi'lek. Come on, where is she? She's in here somewhere. Nope. What? I forgot about that. droids. Who cares about droids? Wait a second. Paradise there. No, it's Rebel Dawn. That's the one. And Bria. Found it. Okay. In the Han Solo trilogy, which was written specifically as a trilogy, it is the Paradise Snare, the Hutt Gambit, and Rebel Dawn. Fantastic series of books. And it kind of gives the beginning, it kind of gives like the Legends equivalent of Kira.
Okay.
To the Legends Han Solo, young Han Solo. However, the play out of it, I think we're going to have to watch Enfys Nest. We're actually going to have to watch Enfys Nest to see if they come back. If should they do more Han Solo anthology films, because her story is much closer to the Bria, to the lady named Bria in the young Han Solo trilogy, or in the Han Solo trilogy. Because she actually does become one of those first people to rebel against the Empire and start taking them on. Fantastic character, messed up out of all reason, totally wrecks Han Solo's entire psyche. It's beautiful. When I was a younger man, when I was like a 12-year-old kid, I'm like, man, I need to meet a girl like this, and never did. Never did. Yep, that's a thing. It's been a long time since then, let me tell you. But just really, really great books. Anyway, with Enfys Nest coming on the thing, I think to try and steal that train car, like you said, they should have both reverse course and gone the same direction. If they had done that, because of the greater mass of Han Solo's ship at the time, compared to the three little speeder bikes flying along, yeah. Well, here's the thing: because of the greater mass, they'd have had a greater pull on the train car, so they probably could have broken off those things if they had gone with them and then snapped back, which is what's referred to as a slingshot maneuver, which is how in Legends Han Solo actually pulled off the Kessel Run. Because moving from the train to and Kessel to the Maw, the Maw in Legends is not just one black hole. It's a black hole cluster, and there's hundreds of black holes all clustered together close to Kessel, which has caused Kessel to deform from a round planet to kind of like this oblong potato-shaped thing that can't really maintain an atmosphere. And so the atmosphere on Kessel is constantly being bled off, and there's factories to try and pump more oxygen back into the air so people don't just asphyxiate on the surface.
What is so special about Kessel that people actually stick around it?
Kessel is the production center for spice, and they mention that very, very briefly in Solo. We'll trade our slaves for your spice, but but for the purposes of this movie, they also said it's a source for hyperfuel in its unrefined state, whatever that ends up being.
They really can't get it anywhere else.
But spice,
it's a big galaxy.
I know, but here's the thing: spice is drugs in Star Wars. It's drugs. Ooh. It's straight up drugs. And Kessel is known for a specific variety of spice that you can only get there. No, it's called glitterstim. And what glitterstim does is it allows a person to experience a force sensitive period of time, where if you take it, it shocks and lights up your mouth, and so there's a lot of there's a sensory overload there is with a lot of drugs otherwise, but then the effects of it affect your mind and your brain and everything, and so people who cannot touch the force can experience something like being force sensitive without actually being able to pick stuff up and move them around with their mind, but they can it's like a truth serum that I take to find out if you're telling the truth, sort of thing, to put it in semi-understandable ways. It's very it's like super valuable stuff, and like the Empire was using it as an interrogation aid, and it was widely sought after, not just because of its like quasi medicinal effects, but also just because it made people feel really good, and it's highly addictive. And it's
people want to go on a trip.
They absolutely did. They're just like, get me some more of this stuff. And it's like, do you want to buy some death sticks? It's like, hey, do you want to know if your partner's cheating on you? Try some of this glitter stem, and then you'll never have to question again. Or you'll only ever have to question again once, and then you'll figure it out. Are you cheating on me? No. The glitter stem says you are. Maybe you're just paranoid. Right. Maybe you're finding stuff out. You don't know. But the glitter stem says it's working. Anyway, so the maw is this. I see what you're doing there. I see what you're doing. I'm gonna let you get away with it, but I see what you're doing. So the maw is this cluster. I need to hire you as a producer. Keep me on topic. So the maw is this cluster of black holes, like hundreds and hundreds of black holes, and they're, for whatever reason, the way the gravity works, they're not like coalescing into one giant one or anything else like that. But because of that massive amount of gravitational flux, it's very dangerous for ships to fly through there, because if you go like a little bit off course, you'll get sucked into it. Yeah. So when Han Solo makes the famous Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs, solo with Gavisas, like, how can you be solo with someone? Then yeah, there we go. There's talking solo. There we are. But welcome. But when Han Solo in Legends makes the Kessel Run, it's not that they navigate through this miasmatic nebula with a gigantic tentacle monster inside. It's that what he does is he pulls what's called a slingshot maneuver, where he goes down inside the gravity well of one of these black holes and uses the added speed that he gained from like full bore punching it in there to create extra momentum to slingshot around and go back out the other way, so as to be able to go through the maw rather than around it, which cut a lot of distance off of his time. Also, this is another thing in Legends, which I forgot to mention with Han Solo and him being in the Empire. In this one, in one of these three, I think it's Han Solo's Revenge. He is smuggling, but what he's smuggling is a bunch of kids, and not like in slavery or anything, but he's smuggling them because they're like political refugees or something. I forget specifically what. It's been several years since I read the book. My mic went. Oh, maybe I'm just sitting too far back. That could be part of it too. But he's smuggling these kids out, like trying to get around Imperial control. And that's when he does the Kessel Run, not trying to like move hyperfuel, but just trying to get these kids safely to their parents or something. I forget particularly where or what the situations were. But not on your stream. How can you still hear me but not on...
Maybe they're listening via my stream.
Are you... Because everything is good looks good on my end.
Yeah, just use my audio.
Yeah, just use Osmond's audio then. I don't know what the issue is. Because everything looks like it's good on my end. Yeah. But he pulls this maneuver and like he gets through it, and the first thing that he finds is a Star Destroyer waiting for him on the other side, and they like tractor him in, and they play off these kids as being refugees, and that there was these pirates that they were trying to run away from, and that's why they pulled off the maneuver, which the Star Destroyer is watching on sensors the entire time. They're like, oh, well, this guy's a hero. They try and give him something called the Corellian Blood Stripes, but Han Solo already had them. Corellian Blood Stripes are like on Corellia, his homeworld, like their equivalent of like the Congressional Medal of Honor. It's something that's given for extreme cases of that. no, not the Purple Heart, because Purple Heart is for wounds, but like extreme case,
nice.
like what's the guy's name? Hamburger Hill. What's the guy's name? I forget his name now, but there was a guy in World War II. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor for staying behind against orders to protect his squad. He stood on top of a burning tank and used the machine gun to repel like a whole battalion of German troops, and for like 3 hours on top of a burning tank, which the only time he got off of it was when it like was about to blow up. He jumped off of it, ran away, it blew up, and then he somehow or another made it back to his squad, and they awarded him the Congressional Medal of Honor for acts of valor above and beyond the call of duty. That's what the Corellian blood stripes are for, and so they were trying to award these to Han Solo again for trying to protect these political refugees, but they're actually like people that if the Empire figured out who they were, they'd be like, no, we're going to take these kids and we're going to use them as political leverage.
Good job.
They didn't figure that out, but Han Solo already had those, and to the best of my knowledge, that has never been disclosed in any form of legends or canon or anything else. How Han Solo got his blood stripes, we all know that he has them, but we are never told how he got them. So it's what?
Maybe he stole them.
Maybe he did. We don't know, but we do know that he did have them, and he was recognized because he was recognized because in these ones, the trilogy that comes after 4, 5, and 6, he is recognized on Corellia as being deserving of having them, but they never say how he earned them. So it was something big, and it happened while he was in the Imperial Academy. So because they've already kicked him out of the Empire, it's highly unlikely that he will receive them in this continuity, which like destroys a lot of stuff. It messes it up really badly. That Han Solo is not going to have his blood stripes. Yeah, I don't know. That's something that bothers me. I'm sorry, because it was one of those cool little aspects that wasn't like important to his character, but it was a part of his character.
Yeah. So the Maw is all the black holes, basically.
In Legends. In this one, it's a single black hole in the middle of a nebula, which is guarded for some reason by a giant tentacle monster.
Okay, I don't get movies that give you a big monster like a. When I was watching Jurassic World, I don't get why, like, the big dinosaurs go for teeny little people. Like, there's bigger meals to be had by other dinosaurs, and like that monster couldn't have any like enjoyment of a meal from them unless he's really protecting the black hole. Then why in the world is it protecting the black hole?
Well, it clearly wasn't actually protecting the black hole, but what happened if you
like, it feels like it's just a monster for the sake of being humongous to chase a teeny little ship.
There is that visual. Some things are put in specifically for the visual, like, but other things are not. Okay, in episode 5, they land the Falcon on the asteroid, and there's actually like a gigantic worm inside.
Yep.
I would be very curious to figure out why that worm was so much slower than the tentacle monster, because the tentacle monster was like keeping up with the Falcon and doing like the anime thing with all the tentacles like chasing it around and going at obtuse angles and stuff like this. Like, okay, it's a cool visual for sure, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, when the Falcon was being pulled into it, I'm like, oh, they're gonna do the slingshot maneuver, and then they like, no, let's dump the hyperfuel into the reactor, and I'm like, oh, well, that's a disappointment. I thought they were going to do the slingshot maneuver because that's what was in Legends, and that's what would have made sense according to the continuity. But apparently, we're just throwing it all out now. Thank you, Rian Johnson. Sorry. I get salty while I'm happy. It's a weird thing. Or I'm happy being salty.
It kind of annoyed me. Like, really? Why is the big monster taking any notice to this stinky little ship?
Well, the reason it did,
to the point of where it died.
Well, the reason I mean, there is such a thing as taking it too far. But the reason why it was following the Falcon was that it was startled by the Falcon, because if you remember, like, when they found it, like, they found its eye, and it's like, oh, I see this little thing, and it's annoying me. I've never seen one. It might have just been curious, like, trying to reach out for it, like, hey, come back here, like a moth to a flame sort of thing. But I mean, it's really hard to provide a motivation for a mindless beast or whatever it was. With prequel movies, is that the life-threatening things are always anticlimactic because you already... Yeah, I mean, that is a problem, but I mean, like, just examining it on the whole, you don't have to know, you don't have to be in suspense about the outcome if it's told well. If it's told well and you can feel a sense of suspense from it, then that's one thing. Like The Incredibles. The first Incredibles. Also, the second Incredibles is very good, but the first Incredibles is very good. Nice try, Oswin. In the first Incredibles, you know that they get older and they have kids, they get married, and all this kind of stuff, and all this happens. But even in that point where Mr. Incredible is facing Bon Voyage, you still have that small, like, inkling in the back of your mind, like, this is very, very dangerous. Can Mr. Incredible actually stop the train? Can Mr. Incredible do this? Is this possible? Because it's told well. It's not necessarily that there is a sense of, impending doom, but there is a sense of this is important. Not necessarily that it's going to make everything hinge on it one way or the other, but if it's told well enough, you do take notice. And now, Oswin, we'll move on to the dadgum yacht. Deal with it. You asked me a question, I was answering your question.
Did I?
You did.
Oh.
You were asking me about the tentacle monster and why it was going for the ship.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was explaining it.
Yeah, I kind of zoned out a little bit
Okay.
when I was...
That's understandable. I do talk a lot. But the yacht, okay. The yacht's, like, specifically the scene on the yacht where they're fighting Dryden Voss. Mm-hmm. Specifically that scene. It was important, but again, it was a little bit disappointing because I was going in there expecting to see, like, Terrace Kasi, like, massive smackdown sort of thing, and, like, that didn't happen at all. So it was a little bit just like, oh, okay. What was cool about that scene was the interplay back and forth between, like, the double and the triple and the quadruple and the quintuple crossing of everything.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's like, tell me, how did you do it? I told you how I did it. No, how did you make it look so perfect? What do you mean? Well, this is clearly a fake. The real stuff is on the planet. He's like, what? And then there's the reveal of Beckett, and he told him all about it, and then it turns out that it's actually the real stuff, and then there's the fight, and then Beckett double crosses him again, and then there's the double cross from Kira, and it's like, it's just like progressive.
Everyone has their own personal motives, and they're just using everyone else to get to them, and once it comes clear that they also have their own motives, they're like, screw you. Yeah,
because I'm not going to let you outdo me.
Yeah.
Which it makes sense, and it played out it played out very well. Like I said, I just kind of wish that there'd have been, like, more of an intense confrontation, because it kind of felt a little bit neutered because there wasn't, like, the gigantic Terrace Kasi battle that could have gone on there. And it might have just been because they didn't have enough time to film with Paul Bettany. Paul Bettany was not actually supposed to be Dryden Voss. Dryden Voss may have actually just been something that was completely made up by Ron Howard. Originally, it was supposed to be, this was all written and directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Mm-hmm. And they filmed, like, 90% of the movie, and then Disney didn't like what they came up with, and so they fired them and hired Ron Howard to come in and reshoot, like, 60% of the film. And part of what he reshot was the big bad from Crimson Dawn. Originally, the big bad was not supposed to be Dryden Voss, or played by Paul Bettany. It was supposed to be some other actor playing a motion-captured alien, which I thought was a lost opportunity, because they're always talking about trying to get more diversity in film, and what could be more diverse than an actual alien. But who am I to tell Hollywood what to do? Although I would suggest I'll do the voiceover for it. And we're ignoring Masters. And yes, we're still going. We have not yet begun to podcast, Masters. You forget. Well, actually, no, I did send that to you.
I have to go to bed at some point.
No, I've already covered a lot of the other stuff pretty well. A lot of the stuff that I've been talking about that I put down there, like Legends comparisons, I've been doing those all throughout. I talked about the box office already. I talked about the controversy. Talked about. Can you believe I talked about the Legends comparisons? I mean, I've only been referencing them like every 5 minutes, but yeah, we are almost finished with this. Maybe another 20 minutes or so. I'm thinking, possibly.
I love where you're hovered over right now. Like you've been there this whole time.
Well, not the whole time, but a good portion of it. Yeah, but each director kind of brought their own thing. Ron Howard is not known for making, in-your-face movies. He's known for making very well-executed movies. And that really shows up in the pacing. When he took over and he did 60% reshoots on this film, that came through. There's no point where it really feels like it lags. There's no point where it really feels like it's trying to get ahead of itself. It just follows very steadily. And it's really a testament to his style of filmmaking, that he was able to come into a movie that was almost all the way done, do a lot of reshoots actually, and then make it something.
Only 7%,
60%, but
whatever.
but then make that his own thing and make that fall through. But he also kept some of the humor that Phil Lord and Chris Miller did, and there's a couple things in there that are clearly their input, like. Does not need more Jar Jar. Get out of here, Zybertech. I'm sorry. He's your person, Osmond. I'm not gonna tell you people to leave. I tell my people to leave all the time. I tell people who aren't even my people.
Cybertech? No.
Yeah. I'm not telling you have to tell them to leave, but I'm just telling you I'm not gonna tell your people to leave. But I actually just okay. I have to be honest about this. On Sunday, I was talking with a guy, one of my Sunday school kids at church, not while I was teaching him, after hours sort of thing. I was talking with him about Solo, just a little bit. I've seen it, it's really good, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, well, isn't it as good as the prequels? I'm like, it's better than the prequels. He says, well, the prequels are the best movies. And I said, no, and I put my finger in his face. No, I'm trying to just impel to him how wrong he is. And he's like, no, the prequels are so much better than the original trilogy. And I just reacted. I slapped him. I mean, it's just not hard. I didn't leave a mark. I didn't bruise him. But I mean, it made a sound. I was like, no, bad.
Oh my God.
Amend your ways. Repent. We're in church. Repent, for you have lied.
Oh my gosh.
It just happened. I haven't apologized yet. I need to. But
oh my.
Hey, he said the prequels are better than the original trilogy. I think that's a pretty good alibi. Personal opinion.
What happened when you did that?
He kept trying to argue his point. He didn't even really react to it at all.
Is that one kid that joined us for a game?
No, that was somebody else.
No. Oh.
He's smarter. Okay, Cybertech. I'm gonna be wait. Address the camera. Address the camera. Cybertech. Do yourself a favor. Having seen episodes 1 and 2, that's great. It's wonderful. They are still Star Wars films. We acknowledge, even the hardcore, diehard fan base who is very upset by them at some point, has acknowledged episodes 1, 2, and 3 as part of the official Star Wars canon. We have done it. We have swallowed our pride. We have given up that they're not going to change them, and we have accepted them as part of the Star Wars canon. Okay. But do yourself a favor. Go watch 4, 5, and 6. In order, you don't even have to watch 3 before then, because 4, 5, and 6, as I was saying to Osmond, those are the story. Well, compared to 4, 5, and 6, again, you have to understand, the main story takes place in 4, 5, and 6. 1, 2, and 3 is a supporting movie, or is like a supporting thing. It's not the main story. It's what happened before the main story. 7 and 8 happened after the main story. Rogue One happened before. It's not like they're necessarily bad. In fact, Episode 1 has my favorite lightsaber battle. Not even that, because I was a kid when I saw 1 and... How old do you think I am? I'm only 28. Or not even 28. I'm 27 for a couple more days. Anyway, what just happened? Oswin, are you there? Oswin? Uh-oh. We may have lost Oswin. Oswin! He's on his BRB screen. Well, okay, we'll just keep this on for a second. It's interesting, but it doesn't really add to the story. Anyway, it's they have their issues, they have their good moments, but for a complete film, I mean, here's the thing: 1, 2, and 3 have their moments, and Episode 3 is probably is probably the best of those 3, which you haven't seen yet. You need to see Episode 3. I would actually recommend getting 4, 5, and 6 watched first, but that's a whole other thing. Kind of, but I mean, there are some other ways you could have done that, and it's not really... It's one thing to drive in a straight line, which is what pod racing is. It's a whole other thing to fly in 3-dimensional space, which is what actual flying is. And the thing is, you don't have to establish that so much, because you have kind of a MacGuffin there to explain it away, which is the Force. Because Anakin has the Force, he doesn't need to have an extra explanation as like how he can fly. He has that ready-made pat answer, so to speak, in the universe of Star Wars. Like, hey, he has the Force, so he just can do these things. Which is why I accept...
Now, this is pod racing.
Which is why I accept Rey a lot more readily than a lot of other Star Wars fans do, because she does have the Force. She does. I mean, not to saying that she shouldn't have had more training, not to say that she shouldn't have had a lot more ability, not saying that Kylo Ren shouldn't have easily beaten her on top of on the surface of Starkiller Base, because he should have. He had more training. He had the Force. He had every advantage there, except he was mildly shot by Chewbacca. Aside from that, he was ready to go. But I mean, I accept her beating him in that situation more readily than a lot of other Star Wars fans do, because they view her as a bit of a Mary Sue, like she can do anything at any time just because it's convenient to the plot. Which is marginally true, but I have a lot less problems with her than I do some other new characters in the 7 and 8 than I do her. So. She has her issues, but I don't really consider that to be the most glaring issue that those movies have, particularly Episode 8. But that's a whole other story. Getting back to this,
8 again?
The Last Jedi. Okay. The last time I trapped you for 3 hours. Remember? No, Luke did not have a Karate Kid montage of training and beat Vader. Luke had a Karate Kid montage and lost to Vader. And then he came back and turned to the dark side and used the dark side to defeat Vader, and then he realized what he did and like turned it back from that, and then he lost to the Emperor, and then Darth Vader killed the Emperor. So Luke didn't actually beat anybody, really. He was just kind of there.
Got beat.
He was a human punching bag for 3 movies. It was wonderful. When Aaron, you can ask your question. Go ahead.
No, I mean yes.
All my knowledge of the show comes from parody and references to the show. Okay, that's sad. You need to sit down and watch movies. People don't realize this. Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1977. It is acknowledged as the best movie that came out that year. And there was a lot of really good movies that came out that year. And that one was the best. That Luke and Leia are siblings. Yes. As in no, not in the Solo movie. In the Solo movie, they would be about 3 and 4 years old, respectively. No, they'd probably be a little bit older, like maybe 10 years old, during the Solo movie, and on like in the picture of the galaxy, like Alderaan is here and Tatooine is like over here. So like, no, they're nowhere near each other. They're really, really far away. And neither of them are connected with the Force anyway. They have no connection. They're not even in that movie.
Yeah. But they are shown to be siblings in other movies. In a galaxy far, far away.
After very uncomfortable things happen. But yeah. Anyway, we were talking. We're wrapping that up. Thank you, Oswin. A lot of the humor, because Phil Lord and Chris Miller are the people who did the original directors for this film, are the ones who did the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street. They never explain that. No, they're just accepted to be there. All species are just kind of accepted to be where they are. That origin is never really explored at all in Star Wars. It doesn't matter because that's not the story.
Humans are just the ultimate race.
No. There's a lot of other races that do a lot more impressive things than humans do. I mean, even here on planet Earth. Okay.
Oh no.
Here's the thing.
I've done it now.
Here's just 2 minutes, and we're gonna move off this. Here on planet Earth, humans are assumed to have risen from the bottom to be the dominant species on the top of the food chain. Everything. I pose this question to you: how? We do not have sharp tearing talons. We're not particularly fast. We don't have, really good biting teeth. We don't have poison we can shoot at things. There are other species, like even apes, gorillas, chimpanzees. They can have 1/2 the muscle mass that we do and have 3 times the strength just because the connections on their joints are placed differently by a few centimeters. We're not strong. We're not fast. We don't have natural defenses. How on earth do you expect us to really have come to this point? I want somebody to explain this to me. You know, like 300, but with animals. I just really don't see us. I'm with you. I'm a creationist. I would love to hear some evolutionists explain to me someday how we, with all of our frailties, I mean,
yeah.
Again, going back to the great apes, our closest relative. Great apes have a skull that's about 2 to 3 times thicker than ours, which means they can fall down out of a tree, stand back, and be like, "What happened? I fell down." And we're like, if we fall out of a tree, like everything's broken. I can't move. Help me! Explain this to me, please. Somebody or at least someone.
Kind of a evolution flaw.
It's just a small one. I mean, like, I don't know. We started coming together as a community. Well, so did wolves, and you know what they have also? Claws and teeth, and they're faster, and they're more agile, and they're.
No, we're smarter. We can use tools.
Well, that does a whole lot of good until you're outnumbered, and they're better equipped in general. I mean, just anyway, moving on. Yeah, there's a couple there's an exchange between Han and Beckett that I was going to touch on with this between the directors for Phil Lord and Chris Miller. Trying to remember what it was. There's a small exchange which was just like purely them, and it was great.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, it was a joke between Han and Beckett, but I've forgotten what it was. I'm sorry. I should have written it down.
Guess you should have.
I know. I wrote down everything else. But I mean, there was a couple points where they came through, like the small parts of their movie that came through. It was good that those were still in there, and I was very happy to see that. Just going to talk for a brief moment on the technical aspects. The cinematography was done by Bradford Young. I wish they'd have gotten anybody else because there was a lot of parts. I mean, no, really, there was a parts of that movie where it was so dark you couldn't see anything. Like you had no idea what was going on screen. Like, particularly like when they're on the bridge of the Falcon. Like every other Star Wars movie, when they're on the bridge of the Falcon, there's lights on, you can see people, they're doing their thing. And Lando is all about flash and pizzazz and panache and all this kind of stuff. And you're going to tell me that he has a dark cockpit on his ship? I don't think so. You cannot tell me that the running lights were added after the fact by Han Solo. That just does not make sense. And it's really just a choice of cinematography by Bradford Young. It was a very bad.
Yes, he is in the movie.
Chewie is in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and this one, and Solo. He's not in Rogue One. He's not in 1 or 2.
He's in 3?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Never question my memory for movies. Haha.
Hey, I didn't question it. I was just asking. Yeah, that's questioning, isn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, cinematography was rough. I think they could have done, but then again, there's other parts like Kessel. Kessel was beautiful. I mean, for being a rock in the middle of space, it was beautiful. I mean, it was very well done. And so there are some parts where it's really good, but like for the most part, whenever there was like an important scene, it was just very poorly lit, and I couldn't really. It was a little frustrating. Although the Star Destroyer coming through the nebula as they're like trying to get away from Kessel, that was probably the most beautiful shot in the entire movie. That was just like, oh yeah, it's like, it's not just like it's in front of you, it's big, it's scary, it's filling up your entire path of escape. It's just like, I'm coming to get you, and I was like, oh yeah, this is happening right now. It was a great moment. I really appreciated that moment. But that was more of a direction thing than it would be cinematography. Because that would be like Ron Howard going, I think it's time to be showy and flashy and have fun. Here's the thing: if they do, like, we'll get say that for last. Did he catch his bird? He did not catch his bird. Or did you catch your bird, Oswin?
Mm-mm.
You did not catch your bird. Tragedy, great tragedy. He's like, no, it's just not happening. It's just not happening. Yeah.
The bird's name is Pepita.
Pepita.
Meaning pumpkin seed in Spanish.
Interesting. I think
Not my name.
Okay,
Not my name for it.
I say, editing, I think, probably deserves the most credit because Pietro Scalia, the guy who edited it all together, he probably saved this movie, because when you have two different directorial visions and they both get made and you have to try and push them all together, whoever figures out how to do that, it will depend on them. For an excellent example of how this can go horribly wrong, watch Suicide Squad. All 4 movies that it tries to be at certain points. But yeah, if you it's bad. Suicide Squad is a terribly edited movie. You can't make heads or tails of it half the time. But this one,
I didn't watch it, so
don't. It's terrible.
Okay, I'm planning on it.
Good. But this one, despite having those two very distinct and very separate directorial visions, actually worked together. The editor made it very, very good. He worked it together, and it was wonderful. Here's a very important thing. Very important thing, not just for this movie, but for all future Star Wars movies after next year. Next year, Episode 9 comes out, and it has already been announced by John Williams himself that Episode 9 will be the last Star Wars movie that John Williams, the original music producer for all Star Wars music, will not be making any more Star Wars music after Episode 9. He is retiring. Here's my thing.
I've done this for too long.
Well, he's been doing it for over 40 years. Here's the thing. When he retires, I want to see John Powell, the guy who did the music for this one, take over because John Powell's music not only is good, but it's like good Star Wars. It's John Williams-esque, where there were points where I was watching this movie, and it's a movie where you do have to pay attention. It's a movie where you want to pay attention. It's a movie that, again, that Ron Howard pacing. There's never a dull moment. There's never a point where you feel like you've been left behind. So you're just engaged the whole time. And even in that, there were several points where I was like taken out of the movie to go, wow, that was a beautiful part of the score. I really appreciated that. I would like to hear more of that. Oh, let's get back to the movie now. It was just wonderful. I'm like, John Powell, I don't know who you are, but please, 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 let's get you to do a lot more. And no, that is a terrible idea. They should not license 90s pop music. Don't. That only makes...
I was gonna say that's a great idea.
90s, like any kind of pop music, only makes sense in one regard. If Earth is in any way involved. And guess what? Earth ain't involved. Deal with it.
Dang. And also, no, I don't really know much Spanish to talk to my bird friend. Also, I said that I thought the bird friend was a different word, and that kind of weirded me out for a second.
Mm-hmm. Again, I'm a salty Star Wars fan. I love Star Wars. I really do. Yeah. And I only wanted to see it get better. And I don't see that in any way being... I don't see that in any way being beneficial, and I'm going to disregard all future comments regarding that.
Also, hello, Starless. Welcome.
Welcome. I think. He's not mine, so...
Oh my goodness.
Finally, future Star Wars anthology films. This is kind of the sad news. I don't know if anyone else has heard this. Lucasfilm has officially put on hold all production, all future Star Wars anthology films. They're going to finish 9, but until 9 comes out, they are not filming, they are not writing, they are not searching for cast, crew members, or anything else for anthology films, which I think puts this in a very dangerous place, because
they've built up all this momentum, and now what are they going to do with it?
Well, not so much, because remember, Solo was a box office flop. They lost $50 million. But again, I don't think that this was a deserved loss. I think this was a reactionary loss. I think that if they had given this the proper time, I saw it, I'm ignoring it. I think if they had given this the proper a proper marketing campaign, they could have reversed it a little bit. I think if they had hired anybody else other than Rian Johnson to direct Episode 8, they could have they could have made that work. Get Baz Luhrmann just for fun. Just do it. I mean, he could have been. That could have been. I mean, I'm sure you don't know who Baz Luhrmann is, but
no, but I don't know who like any of these people are.
Baz Luhrmann is a director. He makes very colorful movies. Very colorful movies. They're all a lot of fun, but they're not necessarily like substantive. Well, actually, that's not true. I take it back. They are very substantive, but there's just he's not a good choice for a Star Wars director. But I mean, he would have probably.
You want to see the Star Wars be ruined? Then is what you're saying?
No, I just want to be. I want Star Wars to be ruined any other way than the way that it was. I want my Star Wars back, man. I promise, it's root beer. Anyway, I would like to see this turn into a trilogy. I really would. I would even be down for some Michael Bay. Episode 9 is being directed by J.J. Abrams, but I think, you know what? Michael Bay should direct the Empire movie, where it's a movie about the Empire, like going in and like subjugating a planet.
That would actually work.
I would love that. Would be the movie for Michael Bay to direct and do well. I want to see that movie. That would make my day. Let's see a Michael Bay directed Empire movie. That would be just awesome. And the thing is, because so the Empire is built up already, it's kind of like a caricature of just like these fascist, Naziist characters. He doesn't have to really write any sort of interesting dialogue for them. All he has to do is just like have them issue bark orders at each other, and go marching through Georgia across all these, some hapless planet. That'd be a great movie. I would watch that all day long. Yes, Michael Bay for Star Wars. Let's do it. I think I just
start the petition and I'll sign it.
I think I just found our hashtag for tonight. Michael Bay for Star Wars.
Of course.
Of course it is. Well, the last time was
what else would it be?
Well, the last time was hyperspace ship missile, but let's not revisit that.
I remember. Oh, that was a good time.
Oh man, but yeah,
10% of the profits. Ooh, what about like none?
Yeah, I'll not. You know what? I'll go so far. I will not just do it for free. I'll pay to see it.
How kind of you.
You're already following Gavi. Oh, well, thank you. Appreciate that. Also, I'm sorry. I do apologize ever so much to you. You don't deserve that kind of misery in your life. But yeah, so anthology films. I would love to see this turn into a trilogy. I don't necessarily know if it will be or not. Probably. If they're going probably not, which is kind of sad because I think it would do very well. There's a story here which has been set up that I want to see. Following me, that's the misery. I want to see what happens between Han and Kira. I know it's going to end badly. I know that he's not going to end up with her. I know that there's nothing going to develop from that. But I want to see what happens next from here. And that, I think, is the most important thing that this movie did. It made me excited about the idea of more anthology films. It kind of opened up my eyes to see, like, hey, as great as these books are, they're not canon anymore, but there can still be good stuff to come from this. And I want to see what could be out there. I want to see what they'll do with it. Honestly, and you guys would probably be on board with this, I think if they do another solo film,
You're Ball Solos. Welcome. Sorry.
Nope, you're good. I think if they do another solo Star Wars film or solo Star Wars movie, that they should get Taika Waititi to direct. For those of you who don't know who Taika Waititi is, and I can't imagine why you wouldn't because of his incredibly common name, Taika Waititi. He is the guy who directed Thor Ragnarok. And I think that his style and his tone and his pacing would work very well with another Western style Han Solo movie where he is, the lone gun on the run. Well, Taika Waititi, that is pretty close, yeah. Yeah. So I think he would be a very good director for the next Han Solo movie. That's just my opinion on it. Not him. Why not him? You do realize he was Korg, right? He was not just the director; he was Korg, and everyone loves Korg. So just settle down. Yes, he was also Korg.
Who's Korg?
The rock guy. I'm kind of a rock, and
oh, yeah. I didn't actually see the movie, but I know about that person.
Yeah, that one's pretty bad. But yeah, so he would be my pick for the next director for a Han Solo film. I think since somebody else mentioned Tarantino, if we're gonna have Tarantino do a Star Wars film, he needs to do the Boba Fett film, and just kill everybody. Just do it. Flamethrowers, poison darts, like just mass murder all over the place. I think that'd be a great thing. And then you realize just what it was that you said. Mass murder all over the place. I think that'd be a great thing. I think we can officially say that my chances of being president have officially just gone down the tubes. Someone's gonna I'm gonna run in 10 years. Someone's gonna come back. So we did some checking, and you said that mass murder all over the place. You think that's a wonderful thing. Could you care to clarify your statement at that time?
Well,
I'm just gonna bow to the race now. Just
No, that's when you say, well, I was having this root beer. I think it may have been a little bit more than root beer.
Well, it is a bit more than root beer. It's butterscotch root beer. Wait, that way. There we go. Butterscotch root beer. I'm a. Why is my chroma key trying to chroma key my orange? I don't know. That's weird. Anyway. It all started with slapping a small child over Star Wars. This kid probably weighs more than me. I'm just gonna be honest. He's about a foot shorter, but he weighs probably. I mean, that's mean. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. I'm gonna cut that out. Yeah.
Slide.
Anyway, Sir Oswin, I think I have run out of steam. Do you have? And I know you've just been kind of.
How about this?
Producing me for the last 2 hours, but did you have anything you wanted to add in?
No. Not really.
Oh.
Last 3 hours. I think what would be good to end it off. Let's both say our favorite scene.
I'll let you go first, because I've been talking too much.
Oh gosh. Favorite scene. I have to think about this for a moment now. Okay, my favorite scene would have to be the opening the opening's when he is in the speeder car, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is this better?
That.
All right, but when he's in the speeder car, that opening segment with the music, literally even before still quiet. I'm just as loud as Gavi. I'm looking at the meter right now.
We're wrapping up, Masters.
But that opening segment, I had shivers all over my body, like the whole entire time. Like I just felt, that feeling when you watch a new movie and you're just like, yes, 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 yes. Star Wars. Mm-hmm. That's the feeling. So that's probably my favorite. Even though it wasn't like really that good of a scene, mm-hmm. It just opened it for me so well and made me hyped for it. So that's mine.
I agree. It was a very good scene. There were certainly some parts where they could have some things they could have done differently to improve it overall. It felt like these speeders were going slowly to me. I mean, it felt like these should have been going faster somehow. But
yeah, well, they were kind of junkies. And one was heavy.
Yeah, I understand. But I mean, that was just my perception on it. But I mean, in terms of just bringing you into the world of Star Wars, that did that very well. It wasn't necessarily the greatest scene of all time, but it
speed limit.
But it did. You do not have to obey the speed limit. In fact, they ended up running down like stormtroopers because they didn't want to obey the speed limit. True story. And so, but I mean, it did exactly what it needed to do. It got you in the vein and in the mindset for the movie, and you were prepared from that point on for exactly what you were going to see. It was a fun ride through Old West space, and it really did a fantastic job of that. I appreciate that scene quite a lot too. Man, my favorite scene. I like the camera work that they did for the exit from Kessel, and I already mentioned that, but that's not my favorite scene. What would be my favorite scene from that movie? Okay, that's when they showed this first time.
So they're going backwards then, Starless?
That would appear to be the assumption. What would be there's a lot. This is actually not a question I have considered at all. At all. Because I tend to view things in the macro sense in the larger picture, as how it all applies to everything else.
Mm-hmm. How about this? What was your least favorite scene?
Meeting L337. That was easy.
Yeah, that was kind of like an annoying scene, actually.
She's like standing like she's smart enough of a robot to figure out that they all have like restraining bolts on, like that. No matter what she says to them, it's not going to change anything. And she's like rattling the cage. Let them out! Don't you realize you're being taken advantage of? Like, this is ridiculous. When Gabby appeared was my least fave. That is totally a legitimate point of view.
Wait,
I'm
in the movie?
I did not get paid for it. Here's the thing. I could have been in the movie, and you would never know.
No, we would know because you would tell us.
Would I? I actually have this this weird thing because I have gone out and I have put my voice in for like doing voice work and things like that, and I have tried to get picked up by talent agencies before. And I have this weird thing, like my intention, like, is if I ever do get picked up from an agency like that, I'm going to keep doing this, but I'm not going to tell either side about the other one. So then, like, like when I'm in my 60s or something, like, what was the thing you regret most? Well, if you go on youtube.com/Gavisas, then and then, or the other way around, like, what's the coolest thing you ever did? Well, if you watch this movie and you go to this point here, you see like the main character or something, but
oh dang,
I have high aspirations. Yeah. But
biggest wow scene was when we saw Maul.
I disagree. That was a cool scene. It was an interesting scene, but it wasn't like the scene to end all scenes. I think like the one that like really just drew me in visually was like just seeing the Star Destroyer like bearing down on them in the maw, and I was like, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
That's me.
I found that one more like cool type moment, but when I saw Maul, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But
he's here and he's here to wreck face.
Like the coolest scene. It's really tough to pin one down. I do like the interplay that comes out in the double crossing scene where everybody's double crossing everybody else. That's really cool. I have a lot of appreciation for that kind of dialogue play back and forth, but to just really get a sense of like the whole movie, I think like to encapsulate it down to one scene, it really was that first heist attempt on the train. Not necessarily like particularly like once Enfys Nest turns up and they're like shooting back and forth with each other, and one of them gets on the ship and they kill what's his name, Rio, and and there's this great camaraderie there of the pirates, because there's no honor among thieves, but there's honor somewhat among these people, because Beckett asks him, like, Rio, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, and you can clearly hear that he's not okay, and that's precisely what Beckett says. He's not okay. Like, something's wrong, and Hein's like, I'll go up there and try and help him out, and ends up just having to fly the ship. And it's just like, there's such a great interplay among those four characters in that moment, where it's like, I feel what they're feeling. I think that's why I felt so cheated in that also, where Val dies and there's not any more fanfare there. Bye, One Iron. It was good to have you with us, because I think because I think in that moment she should have had more, because there was so much more interplay going on there for everybody else. There should have been just a little bit more for her, because everybody else would just work so well together there. I just wanted to see more of that interpersonal play between those four characters, and I didn't get it, which is why I think I can say that's my favorite scene, because when I saw it, I didn't just see it and go on to the next thing. I saw it and I wanted more. Make sense?
I think the Pepita actually wants to go into her cage.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Probably because she hasn't had food for a while, and it's in her cage.
That could be a thing.
But I don't think I'm gonna let her in until she lets me put her in by hand.
Uh-huh. You do need to train her to let you do that.
Yes. She's literally biting on the food thing on the outside. Anywho.
Well, considering he was married in episode 7 and he was still Han Solo, the answer to that question is no. And just kind of how dare you for asking such a thing. While we're at it.
Birds. Anyway,
I
think we should wrap this up.
I agree. We've been going a long time, so yeah. Thank you everybody for watching. Oswin, thank you for putting up with me. Should I grab Masters for the next Star Wars movie?
Next time I'll do some more research.
Okay. I understand. I am a Star Wars nerd, and I am very proud of that fact, and I've worked hard to become so. But sometimes I can be a little bit overbearing about it. So I thank you for putting up with me and letting me talk.
As long as you don't slap me in the face.
And being my producer. That was very helpful. Helped me get back on track about 12 times tonight, and then a couple more times you were trying, and I was just not having it.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
So I'm gonna put this up on my YouTube channel a little bit later on. Not tonight. I'm gonna go to bed tonight. But
I'm gonna go to bed as well.
For those of you who are interested, you can check out my other stuff at the links below. And I'd love to have you over there.
If anyone's interested in my stuff, go figure it out. I don't have a fancy command.
I only have one because I was shamed into it. So I might help shame you into getting one too, Oswin. But in the meantime, thank you all for watching. We appreciate you being here. Should we find a raid target, Mr. Oswin?
Sure. There we go. Cybertech, I have put on some Ewok music for you.
I wish I could hear that because I love Ewok music. Anyway,
here you
go. Okay, I will watch that later.
Very chilling.
Chilling?
Not chilling, relaxing.
Cheery, maybe. Now I know who I want to raid.
I think I know who it is.
Are you okay with that, Mr. Sir Oswin?
Gosh. Huh.
Also, Cybertech, thank you for the follow. Do appreciate that. I'm one closer to 1,000 and taking off this incredibly hot and uncomfortable mask.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do that as well.
Alrighty then. Alright. Type in the command. Whoo!
What's the raid call again?
Michael Bay for Star Wars. Star Wars. Not Star Wars, but
yeah.
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Star Wars. Star Wars. Now here's the thing. Most people use their tongue to make that sound. I don't. There we are. We're gonna go raid Mr. Miles with that and make him just regret his life, and life will be, and our lives will be beautiful, right?
Yep. I'm sorry, I'm sleepy.
That's okay. I'm sleepy.
I'm zoning out.
I may not look like it, but I'm sleepy too. I have been up for way too long today. So anyway, thank you.
Is that even possible?
Being up for way too long? Yeah, that's very possible.
Okay.
Yeah. if you don't have sleep for I think like 6 or 7 days, you start to like go crazy and hallucinate. That's a real thing. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Appreciate you being here. Again, Sir Osmond, thank you for putting up with me and being here and providing excellent production quality and everything like that. You're the best.
Indeed.
And we're going to go over and we're going to raid Mouse Pernicious. Anyone who wants to come with us, actually, just come with us. We're going to raid him, do terrible things to his chat, and it'll be a beautiful night. So I will say good night.
Good night. Stay fancy and wear your seatbelts.
That too.